academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news
Hello, how are
hound.
you doing this 5th day of November 2020? Welcome to the show today. It's a minute past 6 o'clock. We still don't know who's won the election in America. Well, we can clearly see who is heading for a win, but then, hey, it's another 2002 moment all over again. 2000. Yes, 2000.
2000.
Yeah, 2000.
Meaning it is more than one.
Yeah?
So you add an
It's
S
just
to
another
it.
2000 moment. Okay. Siti, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Eric.
Eh. Umeamka salama?
Salama salmini.
Okay. Salimia mini.
Huh?
Salimia. Ndu, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
I'm very well.
Good.
Are you also Salmini?
I don't know. Yes, sure.
Yeah, whatever.
Sanini sounds like salmon and sardines at the same time. Sounds fishy. Sanini means what?
Salmini.
Salmini. See? Salmon.
You know, there
sardine.
is
The salmon.
there's leeway to actually make up your own words like that you've just done.
Yeah?
I think it's called coinage.
Thank you.
You just coined the word.
Quite proud of myself.
And you can bring in crustacea,
You see?
you can bring in fish.
Yeah.
Eh,
I can see you're fine, but how are you, CT?
well, now that you ask, I am actually very well, thank you.
Good.
You're even better than you look.
Yes.
Wow.
That is a definite yes.
Good. Eric, is yours a definite yes?
Yes,
Ah, super.
I.
Two positive men in the room. What more could you ask for?
Just a positive woman and
you
we're
said-
good to go.
Yep, you see? Well encapsulated.
So, how are you?
Mimi. Mimi niko salama kabisa.
Very good.
Kabisa. Very good. Congratulations.
Merci. Let's see how many languages I can slip in here before 6:05.
So, what is happening in this American race?
Omo, strong thing. Oh.
Or more? What is it?
Well, it looks like with the numbers that we're seeing now, 253 to 213 in the electoral vote, what are we looking at? 40 votes from the Electoral College in terms of a difference. Still waiting on what are the new swing states now in the U.S. election. Michigan looked like it was one until it went to Biden last night. Now looking at Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania seems to be the one lagging behind, not for anything else whereby anybody could call any kind of electoral misconduct or anything, but because a lot of the votes that they're waiting on, close to 1 million votes that they're waiting on to count, majority of those came in through the mail system. And there were quite a number of press conferences that took place from the county clerk across counties in Pennsylvania yesterday, saying that, look, it's going to take some time, but every vote is going to be counted. No matter how long it's going to take, we are going to make sure that all the numbers come in. So those are the 3 states that are being waited on right now: Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. And Nevada, sorry, those are 4. And Nevada, so waiting to see. And it was interesting because you saw right now in Arizona, Biden is leading, which was originally, or rather previously, since 1948, has been Republican stronghold. So it's interesting that those numbers are flying in that direction. And it's a border state with Texas, which clearly, I mean, is Republican. Nobody ever doubted that. But now, with that border state, it's looking very interesting in terms of how that is going.
In a new term that was mentioned yesterday by one of our guests, the Rust State, I mean, I'd heard of it, and I thought I understood the meaning, but that was clarified. And those are the states that it was considered would be definitely pro-Republican.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how do they go?
They're not quite going according to that particular text. Not quite.
Things are changing.
Because Michigan, remember, many of these states were considered to be the hub for industrialization. Yes. And it was assumed that these are the states that had the people who would be what they call Trump land, people who would support Trump. And that seems to have changed somewhat.
Yep.
Remember, we talked about the Bradley effect.
Yeah.
And the equivalent in the UK called the Shai-Tory factor. Okay? Now, it works in that it is assumed that Trump became president because there were people who supported him but didn't say so. I seem to think the reverse has happened now. In that people who previously supported him but did not want to support him didn't also say so.
Yeah, didn't say.
So, and I'm arguing that many of them probably use the mail system. Because then, you're not going to quarrel with anybody. You're not going to queue. You're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
It's between you and the postal system.
Sure. Analysts and pundits are also saying that in terms of what Biden was supposed to do, that it seems that he has delivered a white vote. And mostly these white votes, quote unquote, go towards the Republican Party. Usually you have the Hispanics, the black community, the right white population voting towards the Democratic side. But in terms of delivering the white vote, according to pundits, it seems that Biden has done that.
Pundits are getting a rap all over. Pundits got it wrong once again. In terms of the actual, depending on which pundit that is, what they had said and what is turning out to be the case. Look at this story here that's airing on Fox News. He's talking about when the experts failed. Pollsters, what they had said was going to be the outcome. Is it looking close to what they had predicted? Not quite so. And then the others, in terms of even the predictions by the media, and some sides of the media on what then would be like the outcome. It would be known, it would be an obvious one that by yesterday in the morning it would be a clear whitewash. Hasn't turned out to be the case.
Usually, we go by trends that have consistently occurred before. But there's one trend I was thinking of, and I was sharing with Ndu early on this morning. It's that trend of change and unpredictability. It seems to have started off with President Obama. First-term senator, vying for presidency. I mean, complete rank outsider. I mean, you couldn't imagine.
Plus a black man.
I was going to add that detail, but thank you for adding it. Yes. And then, whose roots you can trace to Kenya, he's not even third generation, just, not very far away, becomes a two-term president. Unusual. Something equally unusual happens. It is assumed that Hillary Clinton will clinch this thing. What happens? Trump, he wasn't even in politics.
An outsider.
A complete outsider. Look at Joe Biden. Again, outsider. Even when they were running for who would take or raise the mantle for the Democratic, he was an outsider. He turns up there, and all of a sudden, what is happening is happening. It was not anticipated. Nothing which was anticipated, and if you look at those last three presidents that America has had, nothing which was anticipated actually happened.
And here's the thing then. So you look at what you have seen traditionally happening, but at the same time, you claim to be sensing the pulse of what's going on at present. And then it turns out that your pulse was completely out of touch with you were touching another different animal and thinking that you're telling us about the pulse of a human being. This is where the questions now start coming in. So all this analysis, is it mainly driven by personal emotion and personal opinion, or is it actually driven on
Well, I think
keen observation?
I don't think you can say that analysis is one thing. I think it's definitely a mix of several things. If you've done some kind of analysis, then it would be from your personal perceptions. It could be historically, and then it all comes together as one pot in either personal analysis or a group analysis. There's so many things that are happening. But I mean, look at what we see coming out of Arizona, for example. That one state, nobody ever thought that it would swing the way in which it's swinging currently.
It couldn't have been foreseen.
No way it could have been foreseen. It has been that way for the last 60 years that they voted the Republican way.
So during the polling in the last stages, when the pundits and the observers were on the ground, why were they unable to pick it out?
That this is where it has changed? I mean, no, I don't think that
it's not that the voters decided on the eve of the election that they're going to change. The sentiment of the voter has been there clearly in that state over the period. So how is it that you're then unable to pick it out?
I guess because you're dealing with human beings. You're dealing with human beings who are fickle in nature. That's just the way it is. That, I could say something, but we've talked about it here. I could say something to even you as a political leader, and you could think that I'm going in a certain way. But hey, at the end of the day, I have the trump card. pun intended, but I have it, right?
Yep.
At the end of the day, it's up to me and what I will do with it. You may think the way in which you wish to think for all this time. I could make you think a certain thing, but then I could have decided that I'm going to swing it in a different direction.
You know, when Du says it's not one thing, it is true. It never is. Remember, we have to bring in the issue of polling into this discussion, because pollsters try to do precisely that. And they argue that they even use a scientific method. And many times they get it right, there are times they get it completely wrong. That's where these factors that we keep branding and which have been known or been given a tag come into play. Whether it's you're calling it the Bradley effect, or whether you're calling it the shy Tory factor, or whatever you want to call it, what it means is that when you sought the opinions on which you're going to base a certain understanding, the information people gave you was not what they really genuinely felt.
Exactly.
Anyone who conducts research will know this, that oftentimes people will try to figure out what you want to hear, and that is what they will tell you.
Yeah.
Or they'll tell you what they think at that point will sway a conversation a certain way so that it could either cement their decision or help them to change it.
Or something may come into play that no one could have foreseen, like COVID.
So during that period, since the Bradley days and the shy Tory days, when it was now studied and realized, has there been no attempt at then looking at that and then trying to reanalyze? So why is it that we were unable to pick it out? And this is not just one. It is not. It's not a one-off. Like you're saying, in the last 14 years or 12 years or so, we've had it repeatedly. We had it the first time with Obama. We had, in fact, we even had it the first time with Bush. We had it with Obama. We had it with Trump. With Trump getting the Republican ticket.
Yes.
We had it with then Trump in the general election. We have it again here this time. Many cases where you're seeing this is how the wave seemed to have been heading, and then it has turned and gone a different way.
What happens is that you're fighting against norms that people have considered to be more or less entrenched. That's where the difficulty comes in. Because you're not sure whether this change will actually hold, whether it's momentarily, it's something that will come and pass. Because again, if you look at history, you'll find both sides have been vindicated by history. There have been times when that particular history has been vindicated, there are times when it has been thwarted. So this, I think, is probably where the difficulty comes in. But in an election such as this one here, remember that no one can actually tell, it is not possible to tell what someone is going to do when they get to that ballot. They may even tell you that this is what they're going to do, and they believe it. Then they get there.
And it changes.
They can
And
even
they decide
come out
no.
and show you a different thing.
Yes, and say no, actually, because now it's you, and you're talking to yourself.
True.
You're not having a family discussion, you're not with your buddies, it's you.
True.
And you think no.
And the same way we're talking about then what, for example, the lessons to learn from the American election and the shape that the American campaigns and the election have gone is the same conversation I'm raising about even the pollsters and the commentators and the pundits and coming out and appearing to have a very strong opinion that seems to be predicting what's going to happen and saying, going forward, people should just be taking this thing with a pinch of salt. You express your opinion, it's okay, but it is clearly there's something that's happening in the society that then the pollsters are missing.
You know, pundits present themselves in many cases as soothsayers. So someone believes that these guys can foresee the future. And that's what many of them present themselves as, people who can cobble that information and then churn it out and bring a futuristic element to it. And it's based on things that are known. But there's the human factor, and there's a factor that we human beings have that is unpredictable.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
The
Unpredictability. Yes.
This time seems to be more constant.
Yes, it is constant.
Right?
And again...
And this time it seems to be what you asked, what you got, going differently.
Not quite.
So maybe it's time for the pollsters then to start thinking of how to change the question, how you ask the question. So that then the person stops thinking, okay, this is, you want me to tell you this?
Do you remember we're having this
What a
discussion with regards to our own polling system in this country? And we said, but you see, the questions that were asked were singular questions. What if there had been probes? What if they had asked more questions?
Secondary, yeah.
The responses would have been different. But also, I have to confess that some of these things are clearer with hindsight. Okay? If I was a pollster, I'd wait for all the events to come home, then I'd predict. Because
be able to say, this is what has happened. This is what's happening.
But then I really wouldn't be doing myself much of a service, because the idea is I need to give the impression I understand what is likely to happen and not report what has happened.
Indeed.
But also think about this, Eric. If someone is at home filling in this piece of paper, the effect of you being in your house and the effect of you queuing, that queuing can influence how you're going to vote.
To vote, yes.
Just the queuing. When you're at home, many of us, the way we present ourselves in our own houses is not the way we present ourselves to the public. So if I take just that simplistic perspective into a voting situation, and then you have COVID, which forces many people more than ever before to actually stay at home and vote. Again, just my thinking.
Interesting conversation, and interesting to see how it's unfolding in the United States. Maybe by some point today, we'll be able to see how close Biden is to the 270, the magical 270. And then we'll see then the action that White House and Donald Trump take going forward. 17 minutes after 6, this is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's see how the weather looks like for the day today. And then after that, we'll look at the headlines, including tracking COVID-19 numbers.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
It has been a tough year for your business, hasn't it? But you hung in there. You pressed on. You persevered. And now it's time to rise up. It's time to get ready, to get going, to get selling. And Google is here to help you rise up. Get free training and tools to help your businesses adapt and grow online. Visit g.co/Grow Africa to start now.
COVID-19 imeimpact lives za wasee wengi sana. Watu wame lose jobs, kutoka mama mboga, business owner next door, neighbor amefungiwa hao na landlord. Pesa imekuwa mteja, haipatikani hata ya kuweka chakula kwenye meza. Ili kujenga jirani, unaweza toa suu moja, 100 bob only, na hii inaweza badilisha maisha ya Wakenya wengi sana. Na usisahau kuungana na sisi for the Jenga Jirani Charity Festival 7th and 8th of November on KTN Home, na pia itakuwa online on www.jengajirani.org. See you then, ili tujenge jirani and show some love.
In the face of COVID-19, life has been adversely affected, with nearly all schools in Kenya lacking basic hand-washing facilities, affecting more than 19 million children. Together with Davis and Shatliff and True Black, we, the Standard Group, have partnered to collectively unite other corporates and individuals to join the initiative towards setting up basic sanitation facilities around the country. For more information, send an SMS to the short code 40616 or email standwithkenya@standardmedia.co.ke. Time to come together for tomorrow. It's our future. A partnership by Davis and Shatliff and True Black and the Standard Group.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
COVID-19 imeimpact lives za wasee wengi sana. Watu wame lose jobs, kutoka mama mboga, business owner next door, neighbor amefungiwa hao na landlord. Pesa imekuwa mteja, haipatikani hata ya kuweka chakula kwenye meza. Ili kujenga jirani, unaweza toa suu moja, 100 bob only, na hii inaweza badilisha maisha ya Wakenya wengi sana. Na usisahau kuungana na sisi for the Jenga Jirani Charity Festival 7th and 8th of November on KTN Home, na pia itakuwa online on www.jengajirani.org.
All right, rain is coming down in some parts of Nairobi this morning at 17 degrees. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 17. In Nakuru, Nakuru, 16 degrees and mostly cloudy conditions throughout today, highs of 22 and lows of 15. It's 15 degrees in Nyeri, highs of 21 and lows of 15 today. Light rain also happening here. Clear skies in Eldoret, however, at 14, highs of 23 and lows of 13. Kisumu at 19 degrees, will be partly cloudy through most of today. At 28, the high and lows of 18. Kakamega this morning at 19 degrees is partly cloudy. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 16. Light rain in Mombasa this morning as well. 24 degrees currently, highs of 29 today throughout the day. It's partly cloudy in Malindi at 19. We'll see highs of 26 coming down to lows of 17. All right, out of Kenya into Kampala, it's 22 degrees and rain coming down this morning. 27 will be the high and the rain will continue throughout today, coming down to lows of 20. Dar es Salaam is mostly clear at 22. We'll see highs of 28 and a chance of rain up there. Light rain happening right now in Johannesburg at 15 degrees. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 13. Lagos, Nigeria is partly cloudy at 25. The highs will be 31 and lows of 24 today. Rain showers going on in Kinshasa well into the rainy season at 23 currently. Highs of 30 and lows of 23. Moving on east in Beijing, it's 11 degrees and sunny getting into the afternoon with highs of 17 and lows of 5. And the winter months have kicked in Western Europe. Paris at 4 degrees is clear this morning, however. We'll see highs of 11 and lows of 3, whereas in London at 5 degrees it's clear, highs of 10 and lows of 4. And finally for now into Wednesday night in New York, it's 14 degrees. We'll see highs of 17 and lows of 11.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Good morning. The live stream is up. Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Who's online, do?
Okay, so good morning to Lawrence K. Carrier. Good morning. Tuned in from Machakos today on a jury morning. I know the rain is coming down, but good morning all the same. Charity Maina. Tuned in from Nakuru, Karibu Sana, and Shege Wandungo. Locked in to the Situation Room, the only way to start the morning. And Dorcas Kimo, the morning from Malindi. Good morning, everybody, and welcome.
All right, City, what is today's proverb?
My goodness. I want to combine two proverbs. And the reason I want to combine two proverbs is this. I was looking at the proverbs that I have been mulling over and the ones I've written. And it occurred to me that sometimes reading just one proverb may not, well, in my mind, may not necessarily deliver the message I would like it to deliver. Okay? So, part one.
Oh, wow.
Proverb 1.
Okay.
Proverb 1.
A.
1A. There will be 1B.
Oh, okay.
The reason why the tortoise will carry the weight of its house forever is fear.
Okay.
It's a Nigerian saying. This one, Ndu can unravel for us.
What do you call tortoise in Nigerian?
There's no such language as Nigeria.
There is.
There is.
Omo is Nigerian.
It's Yoruba.
Sasa is Kenyan.
VP.
Kenyan.
Yeah.
Kaka, Tanzanian.
Okay.
Hello.
Hey, whoa.
What is a tortoise? Tortoise. Tortoise in Nigeria.
All right.
Okay.
The
let's
reason
go.
why
So
the tortoise will carry the weight of its house forever is fear.
Okay. Number 1B.
That's number 1B.
1A.
B, that was A. B is, a mind already exposed to knowledge is not difficult to educate.
Okay.
It's called a combo. Today's Thursday.
Buy one,
Combo
get
Thursday.
one.
Buy
Buy
one,
one,
get one
get
free.
one.
It's a terrific Thursday.
All right. Our friend Chinjaua, also we expect 2 proverbs from you today as well. All right. So let's look at the numbers for COVID-19 as we see what the president said yesterday after that meeting with the governors.
Okay, before you do that, so since we're saying, let's just stick to Yoruba. So now, tortoise in Yoruba is the jakpa.
Ijakpa.
Yeah.
Angakpa.
Okay, now is that the small tortoise or is that the big one?
The one with the big house.
The one with the big house.
Not the pygmy tortoise.
No.
Okay.
Okay, so let's look at COVID-19 in numbers this morning. We're looking around the world, and let's start in Kenya, where yesterday, 1,494 new cases in the country. 12 new deaths, unfortunately, taking now Kenya's numbers to 58,587 and 1,051 deaths. Of course, this came on a day when President Uhuru Kenyatta said several things about what was going to happen now as a result of the rising cases in the country, and we'll look at that shortly. But I think, again, a lot of the responsibility was put back in the hands of Kenyans, and saying that, look, we were able to get through this thing. We went from below 4% just 38 days ago to now 16%. Just a month and 8 days later. We've gone from a positivity rate, so that means where you had one person infected with COVID 38 days ago, now you have 4 people infected with COVID less than a month later. All right, is not really happy with those numbers and saying, look, we're not, we want the economy to improve and we want people to be able to eke out livelihoods for themselves, but we will not hesitate to lock things down if we have to. All right, let's look at the numbers around the world now. We're looking at 48,420,101 cases around the world, getting very close to 50 million COVID-19 cases, with 1,230,757 COVID deaths globally. The United States inching closer to 10 million, India getting close to 9 million. We're looking at those countries that went into lockdown as of yesterday. France, the UK doing the same today, and also Spain going into a situation of lockdown. And it's going to happen and be in place for the next few weeks until they're able to get it under control. All right. So, yeah, numbers continue to rise around the world, but certain countries who've been able to put things in place to make sure that they keep things under wraps. That's what we're looking at, high numbers around. And if you just want to give an example of one of those numbers today, looking at France specifically, and as a country that sent out quite a number of bulletins from yesterday, they looked yesterday, for example, at new cases of 40,558 new cases yesterday, with 385 new deaths. And these are some of the numbers that they've been seeing that would indicate now the moves that they need to make coming into the future.
So back to our president and the message yesterday. In those 30 days, what is it that has happened? Okay. According to the president, Kenyans became careless or carefree.
It became careless. And I think one of the things that he did say, and I think everybody was waiting with bated breath for him to say this, is that, yes, it's not just, it's everybody, political leaders alike, and everybody else alike, to say that everybody has let loose and has really relaxed in terms of following adhering to the measures and guidelines that had been set in place. So, yeah, the cases increased, whereby you had close to none in terms of hospital admissions. Now you have hospitals, according to him, teeming with admissions. Now 350% increase in 30 days of the cases of COVID that we see in the country. And then, now ordering or saying to specific counties that if you need to have a county lockdown, if you see things rising, go ahead and do that, if that's what we see. And then saying that, certain things need to be put in place. No more political rallies. If you need to have a meeting, you do it as a town hall within which social distancing will be put in place.
He read his English speech for a while, and then he spoke his
in Swahili
for quite a while. And he made sense, because he was talking about it's in the community and there's a lot that needs to be done so that we make sure that we protect ourselves. What I felt that he didn't do very well is he did not accept the responsibility that political leaders have.
Very true.
He did not even accept that the political leaders and the rallies and the meetings that
were at fault in any way,
have contributed to a greater extent to what we are seeing now.
In that
he just passed it on, and said, for example, political meetings, let's avoid them. But then he comes back to the people and tells you, what you need to do. I would have hoped that he would have come out and said, look, guys, first of all, we made a mistake. We opened and we held meetings. I was in Kisii for Mashujaje. I was in Kisii for other meetings. I was meeting people around the road. I went from there to Nyeri to Kisumu. I've held meetings, and I have partly contributed. And I want to take responsibility for that. And I ask all the other leaders to take responsibility as well. That's what I would have expected to hear from him.
It was missing, largely. It was missing.
The Amani National Congress leader, however, admitted when we had him in the studio, and he said, yes, I have contributed to this.
And since then, we haven't seen him actually holding the public rallies.
No,
He's been holding meetings.
He hasn't. He said we need to do something about it, and clearly he did.
Yeah. The other thing that I didn't get from the president's speech was counties and what the counties are doing. So it's all about stop movement, stop spreading the virus, but what shall we do when you come to us seeking treatment? He didn't talk about did they review the counties and their capacity to hold the numbers?
No,
Should
or even make
increase
sure
in
that they
November
have.
and December, and they're likely to increase in November, what are the counties going to do? Did they discuss that? He didn't mention that. And I felt, look, you've had a meeting and it's like you were just having a meeting to say, watu tuwafanye nini? Wanaeneza corona. Tuwafungie. And that's all that came out of that meeting.
Unfortunately.
What is certain, if you listen to what Boris Johnson is reported to have said, or is quoted to have said, he was saying that the restrictions he is now imposing on the people of the UK, well, let me say of Great Britain, you see me pausing here because Ireland have their own way of restricting,
As do
Wales,
and
Scotland,
yeah.
yes. But he was saying, look, our health system is actually going to collapse at this rate. If we do not lock this country down, what's happening, that health system will literally collapse. Because by the time you have people who are actually unwell, health workers unwell, and they're being asked to report back to work, the situation that you are in is not a pleasant one. Yes.
Okay, let's take a break now, 28 minutes to 7, see what's happening on the roads this lovely morning, and then we'll look at other headlines.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Malindi.
Okay, let's take a look at Mombasa Road and what it's looking like this morning. Rain's coming down in some parts and visibility is quite low, but it's flowing smoothly from Athi River, and that's the Devki stage all the way through. It's flowing quite well at this point. It's going to clog up a little bit right around the SGR as you head then towards the CBD. So inbound to the CBD, slowing down just a little bit, and it's probably going to slow down even further because of this. Let's take a look into Mombasa, where only 2 ferries are working this morning at the Likoni Channel, and that's going to cause a problem today in terms of traffic in that area. So they're trying, according to Kenya Ferry Services, to get those working once again. But if you're headed in that direction, please understand that the large crowds that you see and the long line of traffic already this morning is due to the fact that only 2 ferries are currently operational at this point, and they're working to see how that can be sorted out. Okay, that's out of Mombasa back into Nairobi. Let's look at Thika Road then coming into the CBD. It's slowing down just a little bit. Right around the Pangani Tunnel, but then you'll be fine as you get out of there. And again, we're likely to see heightened levels of traffic as the minutes tick by. We'll keep you informed of what it looks like so that you can plan your journey in good time. All right. Let us know also if you're stuck somewhere, you see a route that somebody else could use to get where they're going quicker. Safe also is the thing to watch. Okay. Spice FMKE. That's how you can reach us on Twitter or text us on 40127.
Spice and everything nice. All right. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, so yesterday, of course, we saw the highest number of COVID cases ever recorded in the country with 1,494, highest number ever recorded. And this was on the day where we saw these announcements being made. And one of those affecting schools, of course, with now the schools opening in January 2021 and those who have resumed for their examination preparations will continue, of course, with the strictest guidelines being adhered to. However, the rescheduled reopening of primary and secondary schools has set the stage for transition headache with for education players. And this is according to The Nation today. With 2020 essentially a lost year, learners will find themselves in the same class when schools reopen in January as they had just finished a single term. However, when grade 4, standard 8 and form 4 learners resume after 1 week Christmas break, they will be in their third and last term. Since they will be a term ahead of the others, this will create a transition headache. At the base of the education system ladder, about 1.5 million 3 and 4-year-olds will be waiting in the wings to join school for the first time. The only hitch that might delay their entry is the current pre-primary 1 learners will still be in the same class, having only been there briefly this year. Most of them are likely to start from scratch, having barely developed any literacy or numeracy skills. So just looking at what is going to happen, according to the Kenya Primary Schools Heads Association Chairman Nicholas Gathemia, we will be advised on what to do or invited to give our input in order to reach an agreeable time by which all learners should be at the same level. So based on what information we're getting now, it's likely that next year will be a packed year, and they're probably going to try and put 2 years of learning into the year 2021.
Wow. Wow. I mean, it's a headache for the education ministry, but I'm sure they'll have solutions to it.
I am sure they already have solutions.
I'm sure they have a way through. And
there are people who actually sleep, eat, drink, think this sort of thing. And they have scenarios.
They know what to do.
If this happens, this is what we'll do. And since COVID came into being, there are people who are thinking of nothing else other than this. What are the possibilities that we are faced with? And what are these things that we need to consider doing? Should this happen? Should this happen? And if they were talking to their colleagues in the health system, they would have known that pandemics don't end in a week or a month. They take time. And even when we say it's come to an end, it hasn't ended. What it means is a vaccine is available and we're able to live with it with it causing minimum harm. That is what will have happened. Yes.
Right.
So they will have known.
They'll know what to do.
Yes.
And it's likely that they also want to make up the time. And we'll catch up.
We've seen it happening before with our universities. When strikes sort of like hampered and completely distorted the learning schedules.
Yeah.
That's what they did. They worked it around and they came up with a formula.
So this lawyer, Kenyan lawyer who surrendered himself to the ICC, Paul Gishero, the wife has revealed why they decided to surrender to the ICC. So the Standard Group the Standard journalists went and spoke to the Kenyan lawyer, Mr. Gishero. So we met 84-year-old advocate John Haminwa. And by the time they were getting to his office, Haminwa was preparing a very lengthy document in which he was pleading with the ICC to consider Mr. Gishero's health and have him defend himself out of ICC's remand center. So the wife says, I've talked to Gishero's wife. The lawyer says he talked to Gishero's wife and she told me that they looked at the issue and felt they had no other option but for him to surrender. She also informed me that his first appearance will be without a lawyer. Camino could not come to terms with the fact that his client, a man with a government job, a decent life, free in Kenya and having health problems, would offer to test fate despite its unknown consequences. Already the ICC prosecutor has also released a statement saying, we are all right, it's good, he's here, we are going to commence the proceedings against him.
And in beginning the proceedings against him, reference point, the problems that we had in 2007, 2008.
Yes.
And if he talks about his participation, he didn't participate alone. So this will clearly come to the fore. But let me ask the question. This is me asking aloud, as in thinking aloud. By the time someone leaves this country and goes to a place like The Hague, right? Is it that he woke up one morning and told his wife, sweetie, can we just go to Netherlands briefly?
I've been thinking.
I've been thinking we should travel to the Netherlands.
It must be that there must have been some discussions that took place beforehand.
Yep.
I cannot claim to know the details of it, but this doesn't strike me as a spur of the moment thing.
It can't be.
No.
It can be. And also the deeper reason why he decided to then present himself before the court is something also of quite interesting, because you'd want to understand. So why? Like Amino is saying, we've already secured your freedom. You are not to be extradited. You stay here. You are working. You are fine. Then beyond that, you have ill health. So why subject yourself to that?
There must be
There
very good
must
reason.
be very, very big
If
reasons.
I were to make an attempt at being a political pundit,
Yeah.
I would look not at the activity, but I'd look at the timing. Why now? This man has been living in Kenya all this time.
Yep.
Why now? Why specifically?
It's not as though he
now?
was in hiding either.
No, he wasn't in hiding. It's not as though people don't know who he is
Yeah.
and the alleged role that he played. But why now? Apart from him clearing his conscience, because that's the narrative that we are supposed to take lock, stock, and barrel. What else is there? Why is he going? But I guess these are things that will unfold in the days to come.
Early March. Kitaeleweka.
So, the Counties Assembly's Forum has threatened to reject the Building Bridges Initiative report if counties are not involved in proper consultations. So they've decided that they want to be part of this party. Addressing the press at a Nairobi hotel yesterday, CAF said counties deserve the same treatment as Parliament, as each has a crucial mandate. Forum Chair Ndegwa Wahome noted in the BBI proposals 35% of the national resources will go to counties, and as such, they need to be consulted, just like Parliament. And I quote, there are issues that have not been addressed in previous consultations with the President. There is room for amendment of the constitutional bill. We want the committee to look into the ward development fund. It is unclear what percentage of revenue from the county should go to the ward. He also said the proposal to have some cabinet ministers picked from the National Assembly should be replicated in the counties, where county executive committee members should come from the assembly. So they have many issues that they want dealt with, and they're saying consult us, or we shall reject the BBI proposals. Whatever is happening at the national level to facilitate MPs do their work must be replicated in the county assemblies. Kajiado County Assembly Speaker Johnson Osoy said assemblies hold the key to the proposed referendum, and without their approval, no progress can be made.
This isn't the first time we are hearing the county assemblies, should I say, making such
Some noise.
making such statements. Right at the very beginning, at the onset of devolution, the same clarion call. There must be similarities between us and the National Assembly. They specified it, whether they're talking about allowances, whether you are talking about grants, whether they're talking about this. And the first batch of MCAs did enjoy some privileges. Let me just leave it there. They did enjoy some privileges.
After the noise making.
They did.
Okay.
They did. But you see, these privileges involve forking out more money to them. And it comes down to a simple question: can the counties afford it?
Can they?
There's no money.
So I think the question here, the conversation here is everybody wanting to be consulted. It's that big to have consensus.
Yeah.
Because they're saying if this thing goes to the counties assemblies without prior consensus building, then every county assembly goes and makes its own decision, we are likely to have a problem. Let's have because these are the speakers of the county assemblies saying, let's sit together, let's look at what this is, let's understand the report, let's see what it stands for. And then we can go and explain it to our members in the assemblies that this is what it stands for. So that by the time it comes to the county assemblies, then it's a walk in the park.
There's a clause missing there. Why don't they ask the members of the assembly to also read the report?
Yeah.
Or why must they be the one to go and explain it to them?
Everybody wants to be part of the process.
Let everybody read it and discuss it if that's what they
Yes,
want.
but they're reading and they're raising questions.
And
No,
let
but in
them-
this case, then they're saying that yes, they've read it, but now on all of this, they must be consulted. Don't just think that you bring something and you pass and you don't consult us. Apart from the issues that directly affect them, which may have been overlooked within the report itself, they're saying that in its entirety, this thing needs to come through us. And if it doesn't come through us, we shall reject it. So I think,
Unfortunately,
unfortunately,
I
the grab for relevance here cannot be overlooked.
I don't understand it. I don't understand what he's saying. Let me explain why I'm saying I don't understand it. This document, the path that has been chosen by the BBI team, I assumed that the county assemblies had to decide. Yes.
They're saying they were not consulted.
On what?
On any of
specifically?
it, on any of this. And so you see, what they're saying, they're not talking about certain parts they will not support. They're talking about the report in its entirety.
But who else
But
has
they were
been
not
consulted?
consulted.
Members
They said
of
members of
Parliament
parliament
were
were
in Naivasha this
consulted.
weekend.
The National
No, just
Assembly were in
hold
Naivasha.
it. It's not as though I don't know they were consulted. Was it only National Assembly as
And Senate.
Thank
Senate,
you,
yeah.
precisely. So they're saying they should have been part and parcel of that particular group.
Yes.
Yes, but then when it comes to it doing the rounds in the counties, MPs want to decide. The Senate want to decide. Will that not be the opportunity to interact
That's the
with that
reason why
document?
they're saying because by the time it's doing the rounds in the counties, it must come through them. So now they're saying in the preliminary process of pushing this thing through, they should have been part of it, so that when it comes to the counties and they're now vital in the establishment of it, then it's something that they had been privy to previously. But it's like now you didn't involve them in the beginning, then you want to throw the responsibility of now pushing it through to people on them at the
Treating them
end.
like the last born. Decisions
yeah.
have been made.
So now
and
you
then
go
just
with
bring-
it.
brought to you and weka kidole hapa. No, they're
I
saying that
actually-
sisi that 100K that was going around in Naivasha. Tuko na mfuko pia.
Now, see, this is what I was getting at. Because, yes, Eric, I think, has preceded me in this. Okay, let's
Take
carry
us
on.
to a very nice lodge. Let's spend a weekend. Let the president
Yes.
come and talk to us. The
You
former
didn't
prime minister.
butter us up.
Let's
You want
hang
us-
out
you want
with
us
our
to
boys.
eat
Hang
dry
out with
bread.
me, and then we go home, and then we'll tell our people, this is unstoppable. The winds of change.
Now
are
because
upon
you're
us.
just, now you're just giving us bread without butter and no water to
What
wash
bread?
it down.
It's porridge
Not
without
happening.
sugar. In
Yes.
fact, the only thing you're giving is salt.
13
Not
minutes to
happening.
7. Let's take a quick break and then look at other headlines.
Spice FM, Malindi. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Right, more and more headlines. today.
Morning.
Headline in the Business Daily. I'm sure that you're looking at City.
You know, I am looking at pictures of let me call them COVID situations, but let me leave that aside and probably look at something a little more positive. Firms resume hiring for the first time in months. Business Daily. Kenyan firms last month stopped layoffs and raised the numbers of workers on their payroll for the first time since February in a bid to meet rising demand for goods and services locally and abroad on relaxation of trade and travel curbs. Okay. Findings of the Stanbic Bank Kenya's Purchasing Management Index survey shows output and new orders at Kenyan private companies expanded at the fastest pace in the study history dating back to January 2014, meaning this opening up of the economy actually had positive outcomes. And keeping it open makes sense. COVID notwithstanding. And that balance has to be maintained. And this is the reason why you heard me pushing this idea of the decisions that we must make to ensure that we stay well. Government will do what it does, but we really must rise to the occasion and decide, do I want to stay well? Do I want to stay alive or not?
Yeah.
Forget this Serikali's idea thing. What do I want to do with the means that I have at my disposal?
If we do this, then we have jobs, then we have the economy open. Then we
Yes, we
live
do.
our lives.
Yes, we can. We can. And we will know we have COVID among us, but we will be managing the COVID and not letting it manage our lives.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kweli kabisa.
Ukweli, eh?
Kabisa.
Thank you very
On
much,
page
sir.
20 of the Standard today, there's a road,
road.
that
Just
has
one.
been pictured here. This road is called Biretwa Tot Road in Kerio Valley in Elgeyo Marakwet County. It becomes impassable during rainy seasons. Now you can imagine how much it rains in Elgeyo Marakwet County, especially around the area of Kerio Valley and some time. So this area is very rich in terms of mango and mango fruit and production. But my friend, the road is a cattle path that is then used by vehicles to ferry goods from the farms to the markets. The problem here is that there are two agencies, the Kenya National Highways Authority and the Kenya Rural Roads Authority, which none of them is committal on whether the major road in Kerio Valley will be tarmacked. It's a major road. It leads to the market. But there's a photo here of many nets of mangoes that have just been dumped on the side of the road. They cannot go to the market because the truck that was ferrying them is stuck, and there are very many other trucks behind it that cannot ferry to the market. And so here we talk about, maendeleo, nini. The Kenya National Highways Authority comes in, the Kenya Rural Roads Authority comes in. It's a major road. Why have it at this in this state for so long?
That's true. And oftentimes people say, what are you talking about? Road networks, how does that affect the way or the livelihoods of people and how are they going to eat? Well, here's a very good example. Just take so many people who are in this chain, right? The farmers, the transporters, those then who would seek to buy on wholesale and then sell and retail. All of those affected, and they can't. The person who has harvested these mangoes and is expecting that they're going to have a return on their investment in the next couple of days or so, on the side of the road now, these things will not move. Directly affects them. Money that they've spent to be able to make this harvest, now they go at a loss.
Imagine.
Just because one road is not worked on. And look at the ripple effect that it has.
Actually,
when you have your network
you will
not
find the
functioning
road
well.
actually was worked on, meaning funds were provided for the road, but something substandard took place. One rain,
Gone.
Yep.
Everything washed.
Yes. In fact, I remember there was a time I used to think to myself, when you see a tarmac road, have they just painted it black or have they actually, because it rains once, honestly, and it's washed
And it's
away.
porridge.
Yes.
So here is what the officials are saying. Cheruiyot Mutai, who is the Elgeyo Marakwet Kera director, said the authority submitted a proposal for tarmacking of the road to the Transport Ministry last year. We used to maintain the road, and I am not sure whether the proposal has been approved. This is a man in charge of the roads in that county. He says, we sent our proposal to the ministry last year. I'm not sure whether it's been approved. This is a national government issue, coming all the way to the Transport Ministry at the top. Listen to what the CEC in charge of agriculture, the chief officer in charge of agriculture in Elgeyo Marakwet is saying. He says, out of 50,000 tons harvested, 50,000 tons of mangoes harvested every season, only about 34,000 reach the market. The other 16,000 tons of mangoes rot along the roads. 16,000 tons of mangoes don't reach the market.
Unbelievable.
Now you can imagine the ones that don't even get to the road in the first place, because the farmer is looking at it and thinking, okay.
Is it worth the hassle?
Yeah.
Remember, Kitui had, similar, Makueni had similar issues. Very similar.
Yeah.
An overabundance of mangoes, nowhere to take them. What did they do?
Turn them turn them into other uses.
Simple.
Yeah.
Meaning value addition.
Yep.
If you're growing mangoes, surely even if the road was good, should there not have been a thought and a process? Because this is not something that requires even it's just the will. Set up a process that guarantees that these mangoes do not rot as they do.
You could dry them, you could juice them, you could can them.
The factory will be somewhere. The factory will probably be somewhere in one of the towns in Elgeyo Marakwet,
They still need
which
to
is
be
what is
transported.
called market.
Yeah.
Okay? They need to be transported from farm to market. So market here is, they are not rotting in the market. They are rotting on the way to the market because the road is completely impassable.
The mangoes,
16,000 tons.
the mangoes are
And they are
not-
saying that in the next 2 years, the production of the mango in the region is set to double. So we're talking about now moving from 50,000
to 100.
heading to the market to 100,000 tons heading to the market. Why? Because the county has launched irrigation schemes in the area.
You know, the reason why I mention a factory, when a factory is put up, usually those who are behind it, because you will look for investors, will ensure that that factory runs.
Yeah.
This so-called road network that we're talking about, part of the infrastructure you require, they will push and ensure that there's a good road. They know if you have a bad road network, that business will fail even before it begins. They understand. I like giving the example repeatedly of the tea industry. If you go to any place where tea is grown, you don't have tarmac roads, what we call maram roads, all-weather roads. They are so beautifully maintained. They are so wonderfully maintained. It is amazing. Why? Because it is understood that this particular product, for it to actually continue the value, this is what, not made. The road is constructed once, then it is maintained. one process will lead to others. But so long as these mangoes are leaving that particular region to go elsewhere, that great need or the push, people don't consider it a priority. It's the simple truth. It is not considered. It is not considered a priority. Look, we have a road just here within Nairobi. We've been talking about it for the longest time. I'm told that right now they are fixing. What's it called again?
Nairobi here.
Oh yes,
Oh,
on the
Mwiki,
Mwiki Road.
Kasarani.
Yes, Kasarani Mwiki.
Yeah.
That road has been anything but a road for the longest time. A series of potholes. Okay? Now, it isn't that the road could not be constructed, but the will to actually construct, there was the will to talk about it. So long as there are examples of other things that have been done in a similar way in other places, I'm simply saying it means it can be done. That's all I'm saying. It can be done.
Okay. Can we talk about then the people who are not receiving salaries in the counties?
Yes,
It's on page 22.
it is, and I was looking right at that story. So now
This is in the standard, of course.
it is in the standard, and county staff have missed salaries or will miss salaries as the Treasury has decided to withhold funds. So last month, the counties received allocations for the months of July and August after the Senate resolved the revenue sharing impasse. Now, county governments are in a fresh cash crisis following delays by the National Treasury to release allocations for 2 months. The Council of Governors Chair Wycliffe Oparanya on Monday wrote a letter to Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukuri Atani protesting failure to disburse funds for the months of September and October. So they've not been paid, right, for these 2 months. The financial crisis in the counties becomes barely a month after Treasury released 52.2 billion shillings to cover the months of July and August instead of the first quarter of 2020-2021 financial year as directed by the Senate. Oparanya said workers in the 47 counties have gone without salaries for the last 2 months. He said implementation of development projects have also been affected by the delay. And he says, we note with deep concern the late disbursement of equitable share of revenue to county governments for the financial year. Up till now, county governments have not received the September and October allocations as provided for in the Division of Revenue Act, County Allocation Revenue Act, as stipulated for disbursement in the cash disbursement schedule. So folks have not been paid for the last 2 months, and that money is still yet to be released. The reasons as to why Treasury is holding this money is
Hakuna pesa, my friend.
Is what?
a ghost reason. Can't be seen,
Hakuna pesa.
but can be felt.
It can't be complicated. It can't be complicated.
Dun, dun, dun.
There's a cash crunch somewhere.
No money.
Yep, and we can keep playing this dance all over, but clearly there's something that the National Treasury knows, and they can't just come out and say, you know what, we don't have any money, because that would have a big impact on our lives. As we are talking about that, the way the shilling is depreciating in value means that our debt is climbing in value.
Seeing as we pay in foreign currency.
Yep. As we remember all that, remember that the National Treasury is repaying debt, and it's repaying debt more expensively than it was. Our debt is more expensive now than it was 6-7 months ago. Hey, all right. So in the next hour, we're going to have conversations around youth and youth empowerment and youth getting a seat at a place, a position at the table. We'll also be talking about an organization that come out to do what many others have done, but it also has a very good plan of how we can help those who are suffering in these times of COVID-19. And this is called the Jonathan Jackson Foundation. And we'll be looking at a helping hand for vulnerable communities impacted by COVID-19. But first, we'll start by talking to Mr. Calvin Kerr, who is going to tell us how the Kenya youth can gain seats at the table of power. These are all conversations happening. In the 8 o'clock hour, we have a conversation about what's happening in the Horn of Africa. Ethiopia, kimeumana. Tanzania, after the election, we know. In Uganda, what's happening in Uganda? We also know that there's something happening in Mozambique. Some Al-Shabaab affiliated terrorists are really butchering people there. So we have that conversation of what's happening in our region in the 8 o'clock hour. For now, it's 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay, it's packing up on Mombasa Road this morning. It is Thursday and things are getting just a tad bit crazy. All the way from the SGR today, as usual. And we don't like it too much, but that's what's going on. It's a parking lot headed then towards General Motors and out then towards town. Uhuru Highway also moving very slowly, then all the way through into Westlands and then joining at the CBD. Coming off of Thika Road at the underpass there, it's where we have a little bit of a clog up. Hopefully that will open up a little bit for us later. Okay, so we looked out of the city into Mombasa, and we know that there's going to be a delay at the Likoni Channel today because only two ferries are operational and they're waiting for the other two to be sorted out. Usually there are 5 every morning. Kenya Ferry Services have said, please bear with them. But there's huge traffic as you approach the channel. So if you're headed to work and trying to cross over in whichever direction, you're going to be there for a while. So plan in advance, tafadhali. Okay, apart from that, it doesn't look too terrible just yet. It's raining in certain parts of Nairobi, so please be careful. The roads are a bit slippery. We'll let you know what it looks like in a short bit. You can also keep in touch with us. Text us on 40127 or talk to us on Twitter, SpiceFMKE.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
It's 2.5 minutes after 7. Thank you very much for tuning into the second hour of The Situation Room right here on Spice FM. We broadcast on Spice FM online, Spice FM KE on YouTube, on Facebook and Twitter, and spicefm.co.ke. For the next 2 hours, we're also live on KTN Home. Welcome to everybody who's watching us on KTN Home. CT Muga, as we begin the hour. What is today's proverb?
A Nigerian proverb. Not specific as to which part of Nigeria. The reason why the tortoise will carry the weight of its house forever is fear. 1A. 1B. A mind already exposed to knowledge is not difficult to educate.
2 proverbs for the price of 1. It's a beautiful Thursday.
Buy one. Get
1.
This thing of proverbs coming out, being removed from boxes at 4 a.m. when counting has already finished. It's going to stop.
or the matter may reach the Supreme
We'll
Court.
take it to the Supreme Court.
telling you.
We wanted 1 proverb. Now the man is giving us 2.
Well, yes. You see, the one proverb, let me explain why. The first proverb tickled my mind. And I thought, but this one requires a lot of explaining and understanding. All right? Because there's a twist to it that I couldn't get. Then I realized, sometimes to understand a proverb, it's not just a question of having the information. You need a little more added to it.
Yep.
That's where the issue of knowledge and education come into the discussion.
All those things.
Yes.
That's why they come in.
Yes.
All right. So we are going to have a conversation now about youth. And we've had a conversation about youth and the youth agenda for a number of sessions on this show in terms of looking at, yes, youth constitute the majority, biggest by far percentage of the population of the Republic of Kenya. Population below 35 years of age, which is the constitutionally recognized age of youth, is about 2/3 of the population of the Republic. Everybody else is a minority. Yet, this majority is not the one that is involved in making majority of the decisions from whatever level, from the national level, from county level, from civil public service level. However, remember that a majority of our members of the county assembly are actually in that age bracket. We have a very good number who are in the youthful age bracket. But in the national politics, national conversations, having a seat at the table, this is what the youth have been pushing for. Various ways that we're talking about this, about looking at the youth as a marginalized community. You're looking at them and then saying they ought to get proper focus and attention, and even preferential treatment in some areas, just when it comes to appointment or when it comes to decision making. But why is it that it appears to be so hard for us to get
Part
this
of the
going?
reason, if you ask me, lies in the simple fact that what you are asking is something that is made possible by political decisions. Now, politics by its very nature is competitive. I'm not going to call it a competitive sport. So, to begin with, yes, there may be affirmative activities that are undertaken by the government that is in power at that particular point in time. And we've seen President Uhuru making very strong attempts at bringing in cadres of individuals who could genuinely be considered to be youthful. But the other bits of it, it is a competition. They may say they're trying, and I would add they're not trying hard enough. No one is going to give it to you. It's not complicated. It is really that simple. So come up with ways of ensuring that you position yourself to get it. If you consider that the vast majority of our voters are in the bracket of youthful, it is them who elect these elderly people, people who are older. It's them. They are the ones who determine the electoral process. So if you determine the electoral process, it means you are the ones who've determined the decision-making process. So why then do you go back and complain when you had the same opportunity to put one of your own in power?
Is the system rigged in a way that it makes the youth also feel that they owe it to their elders to elect them? So far, so such that we are saying that we need then to break down the system that's in place. You're going to vote, and you know that you need to vote to elect your next leaders, but you're at such a place where you believe that the people who can be leaders are the people who are older. It's your parents, it's your uncles.
I wouldn't call it rigged. I wouldn't call it rigged. There's a place of leadership for everyone. If you look at the leaders we now have, whatever age that you consider them to be, they started off as youths. All of them, all.
And I dare say that nobody gave them the then platform upon which they could get into these positions. They took it.
Not all. Not all.
Sure, there were some who may have gone through a hand-holding exercise, but I do believe that the resolve was clear in their minds what they wanted to do. And I think we have very good examples of some of those people who said, look, this is something I'm going to go ahead and do. Sure, there were some people who were groomed and put through the system, but I think there was the resolve in the minds of people who said, look, we're going to go ahead and do this thing. And I don't think only Kenya serves up those examples. I think there are examples across the continent, across the world, where people said, look, I'm at the age where I feel that a change can or needs to be made, and we're going to go ahead and take it. I do believe 100% and wholeheartedly that the government must create a conducive environment within which these things can be done. But then to sit further and say that then it will be served on a silver platter for you to come ahead and go and take, that I have a problem with.
You know, the real push, if you look at even our country and you think about the push that people look around you, the push that brought about change, it was begun by people who are actually youthful. There were already people in positions of authority, and many of them had not started off. We see them at the point where they're already not in that bracket of youthful people. But the change that eventually takes place is begun and pushed by. Now, anytime you think about political change or you think about change in a country, the truth of the matter is this. At the risk of sounding like I am inciting, the youth must actually rise up and be counted.
But you see, CT, I can say that yes, the youth do rise up. If you look at the way we were saying, the MCAs, many of them are youthful. It's how we are as a community. What Ndu has talked about, the youth then being handheld and being brought in, many of those MCAs that you'll find that have been elected in the county assemblies are affiliated to some senior person, either at governor level, at senate level, at woman rep level, at MP level.
Even as high as
who are
presidency.
older, even as high as presidency. So you'll find that it's that senior political figure that is, encouraging this person, you go ahead and then vie for this seat as you campaign for me to get this other seat. So people are looking at CT Muga because CT is affiliated to certain youth and we want to vote for CT. We also support his person. And then you find the MCAs are youthful and they are affiliated to the bigger political people. And then those that break away and go into the National Assembly are then those who are even closer to the bigger personalities. If you see the youth in the National Assembly and you look at how they are,
You can
find
trace
that there is a strong connection between them and another senior person in leadership.
Yes, but you see, Eric, why I began this discussion by talking about the senior leaders we now see began as youth. You see, there's a track record that they have had over the years. It is that track record that propels them to the position that they are in.
Okay.
Now, the people who work with them begin as people who probably were not in politics, and they're just part and parcel of that particular movement. So they learn by observing, they learn by participating, and they, in turn, as you correctly put it, take certain positions within. Because we have a party system, it is within certain parties and within certain parts of this country where people will take these positions. It's the way political positions work.
That's how you climb.
That's how it works. You have to join it at some point.
Let's bring in the CEO of the Youth Agenda, Kelvin Kerr, who's going to help us look at this particular conversation, how Kenya's youth can gain seats at the table of power. Kelvin, good morning.
Good morning to you. A pleasure to join you this morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the Situation Room. You've heard what we're talking about. How is it that the youth then are not dominating the senior positions in government, but they're dominating or almost dominating in the lower positions in government? What's your perspective?
Thank you very much. Interesting conversation you had this morning, and if you looked at me, I was nodding and just agreeing to some of the points that you were raising. For sure, the young people are the population of time, not only in Kenya but globally. But unfortunately, or interestingly, is that the systems that have been created really don't appreciate the involvement of young people and their decisions at the table. Also to note that even during the colonial period, the people who actually pushed the processes of independence in the country were young people. The Kikuyu Central Association. Then there was the Kavirondo Youth Association from the Nyanza region. There were also upfronts coming from the western region that were being led by young people at that time. And those young people that time, when they moved forward to helping the country gain its independence, they forgot that they were actually young people and proceeded on to their old age to cling onto these political powers and systems, pushing away the young people. Now, there have been new younger people who have emerged from the universities. They've gone through to the leadership positions, the Murkomen, the Sakajas, the Orengos of those times. But they moved into the political system and the political leadership positions and refused to acknowledge that there is a space and there is need to engage young people to political systems and to even government positions.
You said
Our
that
president.
let me just pause for a while. Let me ask, there's something you've said that I'd like clarity on. You said the older ones have pushed the youthful personalities aside. How exactly have they pushed them aside?
They have pushed them aside by consistently clinging on the opportunities of power and giving the young people piecemeal. You
But
are a
surely
leader
power
when-
by its very nature requires clinging to. People don't get power so that they can give it away, do they?
But I say that they forget that they were young people when they found themselves into those leadership positions. And there is a need for mentorship. There is a need for passing on the baton. The other day we had a joke of passing on the baton. There's need of passing on the baton to new and fresh leadership. It doesn't happen. And I think it's best way to say the nature of power, when somebody gets there, they forget. So as a country, we need to come up with systems, policies or laws that encourage, a transition, encourage mentorship and empowerment into political systems.
Calvin, these are things that we hear all the time. I mean, for the last 7 years of the Uhuru administration, for example, some of the things that we've heard without fail is the fact that the youth agenda then is something that is really being taken into consideration. It's 70% of the country's population, creating opportunities, this, that, and the other thing. So it seems to me as if the systems are already in place, based on what you're saying. However, I do believe that a greater part of the onus then lies on youth themselves to come in and take up those responsibilities. What would you have to say about that?
Yes, I agree. Somehow some of the opportunities have been created, but as I said, there are more of these or token like opportunities that have been provided for the youth. But there are also the other wing where the youth, as ourselves, we also need to step forward and compete for these opportunities, because they will never be free. Even if you read through the Bible, for those who believe in the religion, you will see that certain opportunities in those times attracted some kind of and level of interest, level of attention, and quest to take up those opportunities. So I think as young people also we need to come out of the laissez-faire and lethargy kind of living and take up opportunities. When you're given a chance to sweep a particular road, let's say through the Kazi Komtani initiative, do it so well so that you become conspicuous. You can be seen, you can be trusted with leadership. At the same time, there are a number of young people who have been given opportunities of leadership, and then they end up in issues of corruption, mismanagement of funds, and therefore also make the existing leadership not to trust the youth with the responsibility.
Mr. Kea, if you look at leaders who are youthful, who have sort of like made it to become national leaders, what is it that they do? Because they begin as a large group of young people participating in some political activity, for instance, but then some people stand out. What is it that they do that makes them stand out? Are their hands held, or is it something personal about them that propels them to the position that they eventually end up in?
Some of them are, their hands are held. They are connected to the who is who in the country. And as you had highlighted earlier on, some of them are closely linked to the leaders or founders of those political parties, or even aligned to the families around to the people in leadership or government, and the favors could land on their side. But also there are those young people who have consistently pushed the youth agenda or different agendas, be it in agriculture, in sports, in environment, and they have been, at the fore. You cannot do something minus them because they've made a name and they've become stakeholders in the space. Therefore, the only option is to engage them and include them into the system, because when they're away, then they cause trouble to the system. And there are many. There is one, the MP for Mombasa, I think, East, the former student leader for University of Nairobi. I mean, such a person with the powers that he has been able to move around him or following from the youth and the people. It's not easy to write off that kind of a person. The only option is to try as much as possible to accommodate them into the system. There is a person like Sakaja who is very forthright. His mind is so straight, it's so eloquent. Whenever he gets a space even to debate in the assembly, you can notice him and you cannot do away with him. Whenever an opportunity comes to chair a parliamentary committee, you will find that his name appears. Same to Mtula Kilonzo and the many others that we can see in our parliament. Going down to county assemblies, the same cases happen. Yeah, there are so many vocal, very brilliant young people, some of them with the legal mind. When it comes to passing of laws in the assembly and even analyzing budget documents, or even monitoring and evaluating what their governors are doing, you cannot do away with them. You will always invite them, give them a chance, consult them, and definitely most of those MCAs, you're going to see them. They're going to be members of parliament, and some of them will be governors in the near future stuff.
So if we're looking and saying that there's not enough of the pie, everybody has not been able to get a little bit, what do you think? I'm still going to come back to the responsibility of youth. What do you think is the responsibility that lies on the shoulders of youth to see themselves in these positions? Because it is important to say that the largest percentage of the population should be involved in how the country is being run, for example, or how it's being governed or how it's being administered. What responsibility then lies on their shoulders?
Excellent. Our responsibility as young people is on the voting, number one. What kind of people do we vote? And what aspects of evaluation or, interviewing the candidates that come to us that we do as young people? A lot of the time, as young people, what happens is that we are mired in the politics of party and politics of tribe, and then we forget that we need value-based leaders who can provide policies and directions that bring us to change. We should know as young people that the power that we have to vote is directly connected to the lives that we live. It's directly connected to the jobs that we are going to get in the future. It's directly connected to the lives of our children. The moment we get to know that the line between politics and what happens during the day is very narrow, then our decisions will be upfront and upright. That's number one. Number two is about ourselves participating in the electoral process as being candidates to be elected in politics. So most of us have not joined political parties. And for us to be in politics and our country, then you have to be in a political party system. Yeah. So again, I would want to push, and this is part of our agenda as youth agenda, to encourage and advocate for the involvement of youth into the political and leadership system. That we join political parties, and then we understand what these political parties stand for. What are their manifestos? What are their plans? What are their visions? Even what are their colors? And what do those colors mean when it comes to development and leadership? Then, of course, vie for elective positions. I want to thank a gentleman called Diora or somebody. I forgot the other name. The gentleman who vied who was a deputy presidential candidate for one of the aspirants in the previous election. Yes. You could see how the gentleman moved us. He was sober. His ideas were the ideas of the time. And that proved to the many that actually young people can be trusted with responsibility. So we need to find more of them coming out to be governors and also, MCAs, MPs, and senators. And now with the development stories about BBI, again, we need to see youth positioning themselves in this new MP positions that are going to be created if at all BBI passes.
Actually, now that you're talking about that, Calvin, and as we conclude, tell us, is the youth agenda involved in conversations and pushing for more inclusion of youth and youth positions, for example, in the BBI? Are you involved in the BBI conversation, and to what extent?
Yes, we have been involved, largely even from the start, when the people were collecting the views. Youth agenda was highly involved in providing ideas. And right now we are also going on. We are sensitizing the youth to make them participate in the process. And we have also some of the proposals that we will be fronting. Of course, the time is still there and people are still discussing. But some of the things we would wish to highlight, particularly during this time, is that, yes, we appreciate the idea of the Youth Commission, but it will be important if the president became bold and his new brother, he got there recently, former prime minister, that we consider having a standalone youth ministry for the youth. And this ministry must not be led by a youth, but we can have a youthful idea person to lead it. But then the other positions below it, if at all there will be a CS position or PS position, these positions, directors, all of them should be youth. And the same should go to counties. If you've gone to the county government, you realize that the youth issues is huddled between gender, sports, and culture.
Yeah.
Mr. Kerr, you're compromising too much. If you really want to further a youth agenda, stop compromising. Why is it not possible for the youth to be a CS? What is difficult about it? There are very many people. If you look at some of the really older politicians we have in this country, they began these jobs when they're in their 20s. And they have led. What stops people from organizing themselves if they're youth to actually vie, not compromise and say, okay, we'll take director position. No. Go for the CS's job. Go for the PS's job. Why can't you go for those jobs?
So a youth ministry headed by youth.
Yes, let it be headed by youth. Yes, let it be headed by youth, and let's see how it goes on.
I said not necessarily. It can be a youth or somebody who has got the youth idea, but largely all the other positions under therein should be led by the youth. The other idea that I would actually bring forward also is that in the new cabinet positions that are being fronted, let there be at least 3 of them being young people below 30 years, so that then some of these youth then could proceed to become governors and even the president in the future. That is very key. In terms of political parties, again, our proposal is to push political parties to ensure that the people who are fronted for elective positions are also below 35 years. So that, again, we get more of these MCAs and members of parliament coming in as young people.
Kelvin, thank you very much.
I think talk about
those are good ideas, and I think we should invite you again so we can have a longer conversation on this and see what is it that the youth then can do, and how is the youth agenda championing this with the specific proposals on what should happen at the political party level, at local level, at civic ward level, the community level, at national level, in terms of advancing the youth agenda. Asante sana for joining us. Kelvin Kerr is the CEO of the Youth Agenda. We've been talking about how Kenya's youth can gain a position at the top, at the seat of power. Kelvin, thank you and have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day. It's a pleasure to be hosted by you. Bye.
All right. 26 minutes after 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Time for us to take a break on KTN Home, online, and on Spice FM.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
You want your car to perform flawlessly? We set it as our goal to make sure you uncheck your car's engine from your problems list. Forget about residues. Forget about overheating. Forget about corrosion. Our fuel, Optimum, keeps your car's engine as clean as ever for optimal performance. Optimum of Ola Energy, ultimate protection.
COVID-19 imeimpact lives za wase wengi sana. Watu wame lose jobs kutoka mama mboga, business owner next door, neighbor amefungiwa hao na landlord. Pesa imekuwa mteja, haipatikani hata ya kuweka chakula kwenye meza. Ili kujenga jirani, unaweza toa suu moja, 100 bob only, na hii inaweza badilisha maisha wa Kenya wengi sana. Na usisahau kuungana na sisi for the Jenga Jirani Charity Festival 7th and 8th of November on KTN Home, na pia itakuwa online on www.jengajirani.org. See you then, ili tujenge jirani and show some love.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
Some rain showers in Nairobi, currently at 17 degrees. We'll see highs of 24 today. Rain showers likely to continue throughout the day. And looking into other cities, in Nakuru, mostly cloudy conditions at 16. We'll see highs of 22 and rain showers also later, then with lows of 15. In Nyeri, 16 degrees and rain also coming down, highs of 21. Rain showers are likely to continue throughout the day as well. We'll see highs of 21 and lows of 15. In Eldoret, 13 degrees and mostly cloudy conditions throughout the day, highs of 23 and lows of 13. Kisumu looks partly cloudy at the moment at 18. We'll go to highs of 28 and there shall be light rain throughout most of the afternoon, coming down then to lows of 18. And in Kakamega, currently at 18 degrees, we'll see highs of 26 today, mostly cloudy conditions through parts of the afternoon. And looking into Mombasa, 24 degrees and light rain happening right now, highs of 29 and lows of 24. Looks like it's going to rain through most parts of today as well in Mombasa. Malindi is partly cloudy at 18 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 17, with mostly cloudy conditions throughout today. In Kampala, Uganda, 22 degrees and light rain, highs of 27 and lows of 20. The rain showers are going to continue through the day. And in Dar es Salaam, it's partly sunny at 23. Sunny conditions throughout today, highs of 28 and lows of 22. Johannesburg at 13 degrees is going to warm up today. Currently, rain showers coming down. And it's going to continue through most parts of the morning, highs of 22 and lows of 12. Looking into Lagos, it's partly cloudy at the moment at 25, light rain coming down later, partly sunny conditions to follow later with highs of 31 and lows of 25. Kinshasa, where we wrap things up right now, it's partly cloudy at 23. It's going to come in with some rain later, going to highs of 30 and lows of 23.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. Spice FM.
Is there something wrong with Mombasa Road
Traffic.
inbound? Absolutely. There is traffic, and yes, it might take you about a million hours. But it's going to take some time coming out of Mombasa Road this morning. It is a bumper to bumper. Let's look at coming out of Westlands. A minor accident on the Red Link bypass today. And so anybody who was using that bypass to get into the CBD a lot quicker, it's going to slow you down some because that accident is yet to be sorted out. Okay, coming off of Thika Road, getting into the CBD as well, a little bit slow because of the traffic that we see right at the underpass at Pangani. That's traffic joining in from Muthaiga and all the way then from Thika Road, so that's moving slowly today as well. Okay, a lot of complaints coming in from Mombasa. We see that because only 2 ferries are operational this morning. The other 3, they're working on them to see if at least 2 more can join the service in the course of the morning. But for now, only 2 ferries operational. So if you're heading there, there's a long line of traffic in both directions trying to cross the Likoni Channel. So you might want to plan ahead of time or wait it out for this one. Okay, Spice FM KE, that's how you can get in touch with us on Twitter or text us 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. In the room is Eric Latif, CT Muga, and Ndu Oko. COVID-19 came and hit, and we've discussed it very many times. It impacted very many communities, especially in the urban areas and also in the rural areas. And we've raised the issue of social protection very many times, asking ourselves, what is it that the government has done and is doing to cushion people from the bad effects of COVID-19, especially on their livelihoods? We've asked also ourselves, what is it that various communities are doing to help one another? And we have seen the emergence of very many people who have come out to say, you know what, from the little that I have, I want to share. I want to share with a friend, I want to share with a neighbor, I want to share with somebody that I don't know, but somebody who will greatly benefit from getting a meal today, or being able to feed their family, or being able to clothe their children. This has happened because this is a spirit that we have as Kenyans. In fact, it's this same spirit that led the president to form the COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund and created a board for it. It's chaired and led by eminent personalities in the corporate world. It's been doing a lot of work on this. We'll discuss this another day. But it's about people coming out together for one another to help each other. There are many organizations that have run campaigns of saying, you can send something to us and then we'll distribute it to other people. Others just started like that, just accidentally. They received such overwhelming support that it has grown into something bigger. People like Cherotich Sei, whom we've spoken with here on the show. There's a concert that's going to be held on the 7th and the 8th of November, and this is called the Jenga Jirani Charity Festival, which is geared towards doing the same, raising money so we can help vulnerable communities impacted by COVID-19. This is being spearheaded by the Jonathan Jackson Foundation in partnership with various other organizations, including the Standard Group. The chairman of the Jonathan Jackson Foundation is called Jonathan Jackson. Surprise, surprise. He joins us. He's with us on the line. Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning. Nice to be on the line with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us this morning. Just tell us more about the Jonathan Jackson Foundation before we talk about the Jenga Jirani Festival.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. So I started it about a year and a half ago. I was born and grew up here in Kenya. My parents were working with AIC Church, And my mother started a charity working in Kibera, helping women to make products, and then she would sell them for them, and so that they could earn a living and put bread on their table. And so I was with my mother when at the age of 6 in Kibera, and so that's where I sort of had the training and the start and the understanding of the need there and the dire situation. And then I did my degree in London. I then did my business in Europe. I've then taken the profits and the money I made in Europe and brought it back and investing into Kenya. And I decided that I really should get involved in helping some CBOs and charities in Kenya. But in the end, I decided it was best to set up my own charity, foundation, which we could be custodians for change. You know, there's so many amazing, Kenyans are, as you said, we really have a heart for each other. We really do great things to help each other. And there's so many CBOs in the communities helping each other, doing things. So I said, well, look, let me come in and try and not to repeat what's happening, but to help and support what is going on there. For example, one great example I have is we found this great Kenyan with a great heart to help. He was teaching some 5 youths how to cut hair, and then he said he would give them a certificate and hope they would find a job. And I said, well, look, rather than doing 5, do 20, and when they have completed, we'll give them the shears and the scissors and the combs necessary to start their own business. And now he's done over 200 youth. All of them have gone off and started their own little businesses, and they're earning income and able to put bread on the table. And so this is really the kind of activity that we do as a foundation is more economic support, trying to helping people to come together. We've done training courses, we've helped car washes, we've helped kiosks, and many other small projects in order for youth groups, and mainly we're working with youth groups and women groups to be able to get a sustainable economic income, because it doesn't work forever to be just handing out food. And of course, during this, and we also bought a football club, and we bought Nairobi City Stars, which, as you know, we were the champions this year for the Super League, and we now are in the Premier League. And that has been a great access into the communities and has opened up doors for us. And during this Corona period, we've been we decided we can't work with the youth groups on a group basis because of the restrictions. We decided, okay, let's go and help deliver food, buy food and deliver food. Yep. So we've now delivered over 2.1 million meals over the last 6 months. And we are so grateful for the various organizations that we have worked with and cooperated with, and in particular, Kabamba. And I'm sure you know Kabamba, the youth group who work with schools all over Kenya, and they've been an amazing assistance. So we have partnered together to start this Jenga Jirani charity festival.
Okay, so Jenga Jirani then, essentially, Jonathan, was born out of the problems that you saw that COVID had presented?
That's correct. I mean, we had the Jonathan Jackson Foundation. It was long-term sustainable projects that we aim for, and sport as well, because we do both. We've actually built our first basketball court in Katina in Kawangware, and we plan to build a lot more basketball courts. But because of the corona effect of people losing their jobs and not able to afford to even have food on the table, we realize that this is a critical situation, and we really need to be out there to help. So as I said, we've been in the communities, over 60 different communities in Kenya, and we've delivered over 240 tons of food.
Mr. Jackson, could you just outline for us some of the outstanding achievements that this initiative has actually brought to the fore?
For me, what has touched me most is the fact that two points, actually. One is that when we were delivering the food, people were very grateful. But then when we worked with Kabamba Trust, and we would go in with them, and they would mentor and pray with the sick, and we're delivering food to the really sick, the really vulnerable people, and we spend 3 to 4 days identifying them. We get a list from the local community and from the local chief of all the really sick people, and then we use our football players, because our football players come from all of these communities, to go house to house to check that the person really is sick and really elderly and really vulnerable. And we then have a short list, and from that short list we then do the distribution. And so we actually, sometimes we do it in a group, sometimes we do it mostly house to house. And actually, when you actually go into someone's house who's really vulnerable, really desperately hungry, and you come in and give them food and you pray with them and you actually show care to them, the tears that come from both sides, our side and their side, is immense. And it's what's touched me most. And really, it's the value, of caring for each other and really basically being a Jenga Jirani. And the second thing, I think the biggest impact that I've seen and what we have done is that the youth groups that we have been working with previously have been helping us doing the distribution. So I've been supporting them and giving them even an income to help us do the distribution. And they have been so appreciative of other people coming in and helping and supporting. And we've had a lot of the artists who have come in, who are going to be in this festival on Saturday and Sunday this weekend, and all the top artists have come on board, and they came with us and helped to do the distribution, and the appreciation from the communities that that the neighbor has come and help them has been immense, and so much so that they've even stood up. And there's one old lady who had got her sack, and these sacks of food are really heavy. They last a family of 5 for 10 days, and she had got she'd saved 50 shillings to be able to take the food on a motorbike back to her home, and she stood up and said, "I'm going to give my 50 shillings to the Jenga Jirani initiative, because you're doing such an amazing job. We all need to help and support each other." And my point is, if she can do that, then we all can do it. We really all can do it.
So tell us about this festival. It's going to take place on the 7th and the 8th of November. Where is it going to take place, and what's the order of events? Who's participating in it, and then how do we participate in it as well?
So the order of events is that it's an online festival, but we have a great relationship with the Standard Group. We appreciate that, and they're going to show part of it on TV on KTN Home between the 7 o'clock news and the 9 o'clock news on Saturday and Sunday. And but it's an online. You view it by going to the website jengajirani.org, and you can then, and there are 3 stages, and this is what's so interesting about this. It's not just a one concert. There are 3 stages running simultaneously. We have the main stage with all the top artists singing there, and then we have the gospel stage, which Kabamba are running, and then we have a lifestyle stage. And so we've got the main stage is the MC for the main stage is going to be MC Jesse. So he's going to really run that. That will be amazing. Kabamba are running the Kabamba stage, and we've got Farid Kamani, who's going to be running the lifestyle stage. And so we've got really amazing mixture of content. It's going to be quick, it's going to be fast, it's going to be very highly entertaining, and very, very professionally produced. So it's going to be a great thing, and we're very happy too that Betty Charlo will be there, and she will be in between the different stages. So you go onto the website and you'll you will see all 3 stages. You can then click onto one, and if you get bored with one, you can switch over to another one. There's a list of all the programs there. There's a list of all the artists there. And as we said, we have over 55 artists.
That's quite a number. So as I'm watching all this, Jonathan, then how do I contribute to the initiative?
So again, you can either go to the website and you will see there the donate button. But we're very pleased to say is that AMREF have come on board because fiduciary management is really, really important. So AMREF have given us a pay bill number, and so all the money is collected into the AMREF account. And the pay bill number is very, very easy. It's 344555. It's 344555, and it's and the name is Jenga Jirani. So it's a very, very easy one to remember. And what will happen is that we have set up an advisory committee comprising of the Red Cross, Kubamba, the AMREF, an AMREF representative, and of course ourselves, to be able to make sure that all of this money that comes out is going to go to not only to our initiative, but what we have done is that we've decided to go across Kenya, and we've actually now linked up with 15 different CBOs who are doing similar work as we are across the whole of Kenya. And if you go to the website, you will see all of those beneficiaries have been listed there and named there. And we have actually decided to really concentrate on 3 pillars. So this is the 3 pillars that we're trying to support. And one is food distribution. The second is economic sustainable programs to help people get back on after this corona period who've lost their jobs, help them to get back onto their feet. And the third one, as you know, there's been a huge spike and an increase in pregnant teenagers. So across the country. So we're working with those 15 different charities from every region of Kenya. And so this money will be distributed across the whole of Kenya under the guidance of that supervisory committee, and all the money being held by an AMREF account.
Jonathan, I mean, in all of this, it started as a result of a response towards COVID. How far would you like to see this go? I mean, what would be the plan in the coming years? Even as COVID may go or still be here, what would be the plan as you go forward in terms of helping the more vulnerable in society?
Well, thank you. This Jenga Jirani is amazing. You know, it's amazing Kenyan spirit, and amazing how the Kenyans are coming together. And it really is a coming together. And if you see the artists who come on the distributions with us, and Lady B and others like that, there is a real spirit of let's come together. You know, the government have tried their part. We're not quite sure exactly of what happened to all the money that they raised. But what we wanted to show is, look, there is, and as we all know, corruption is really bad in Kenya. And the biggest problem with corruption is that we lose trust in each other. We've lost trust. And we want to try and see, let's come together as Kenyans. Let's try and start to trust each other. We need to trust each other for us to go forward. And all we're asking is for 100 shillings. Our request is just 100 shillings each, which of course for most of us is a tip to a waiter or a parking fee at a shopping center. It's very, very affordable and easy to do. And so we're just saying, please donate that 100 shillings. We will show you, we will come back and actually show you what we're doing with 100 shillings, helping all of these different CBOs across the whole of Kenya, supporting these 3 pillars. And we want this to become like a movement of Kenyans coming together, helping each other, and really Jenga Jirani, not just a one-time. But let's do it. Let's continue doing this. Let's go on into next year. Corona is not disappearing. The effects of Corona is not going to finish at Christmas. It's going to continue through to next year. And so we need to not only give food, we need to help people to have sustainable income and to give them jobs. And that's really what we want to do. And so we really ask Kenyans, please come together. Like that lady who gave her 50 shillings, her last 50 shillings. Please, let's donate 100.
So you see, the Kenyan spirit is that of giving, is that of helping one another. And it's a commendable job that Jonathan Jackson Foundation has been doing, plus all the others who have been working during this COVID-19 period to help those who are suffering. But questions will always come back into, so for how long, for example, can we expect the Jonathan Jackson Foundation and the others to be the ones that are helping these most vulnerable in the community? You talked about going into the different homes and finding somebody who is really, really sick and they don't have a meal. And yet we have government officials from that village level going all the way to the national level. Do you see any sort of involvement of government, even as you do your work, in them coming to say, all right, we like what you're doing, we can also support you in this and the other, or we can ask you to contribute to what we are working on as a policy or as programs to help completely sort out the people that you have been dealing with? Do you see government coming in?
Well, we have watched and we've asked, and I'm in the communities on a regular basis, and in all of the different communities across Nairobi with my team. And we have, the only thing we have seen that the government have come in, they put in some cases wash hand stations so you can keep your hands clean, and also masks. They've also delivered some masks. But in terms of food, I've not heard of any direct government food distribution directly to the people in their homes. I've heard that there have been some food distributions to the local chiefs, but whether that food actually ever reaches the really vulnerable and really gets out there, I've not heard about it, and I've not seen it. And as I said, we've been very, very active in the communities, and we've now delivered over 2.1 million meals into all of these homes directly, with Kabamba as our partners. And so, yes, we would love to see the Kenya government to be more active and helping and supporting delivery of food, because these people are really, really hungry. We go in there, and they only have, their neighbor comes and gives them ugali for breakfast, and that's all they eat all day. They don't have anything else. And and often they can go for days without food. And on medication, I have seen personally in these really very, very difficult situation in these homes, where they've not had any medical assistance for even up to a year, and they can't even move out of their home, and there's nobody who can actually carry them to the hospitals. So the medical side, and it's something that I don't really know how to help, and I'm very grateful to Dr. Kathinji of AMREF, who are looking into how we can actually help on the medical side as well. But that's another long-term objective that we try to do. So yes, there are amazing organizations like AMREF and Red Cross and the Aga Khan Foundation and also the Rotary Group. All of them we are partnering with in one way or another, and helping to try and support this. But what we are really, and what is amazing, what we're really wanting to support is the local Kenyan CBOs.
Talking of local
agencies.
CBOs, do you then have perhaps a plan to cascade this really genuinely wonderful work to each and every county in the country?
Well, if you go to our website, jengudurani.org, you will see their beneficiaries, and there you will see 14 different organizations we've identified and partnering with across the whole of Kenya, in all the regions of Kenya. So the money that we will raise during this charity festival will actually be distributed across the whole of Kenya to these CBOs, and I tell you, they're amazing. I mean, we're very pleased with what we've done and humbled that we can actually do and help in Nairobi, but there are so many great Kenyan CBOs all over Kenya doing the same thing with an amazing heart to help their neighbor. And that's really what we want to do, is we want to bring all Kenyans together. Let's go and help each other. The problem we have today in the corona period is that agencies and companies are really suffered. No one's getting the income that they used to have, and therefore it's very hard to get agencies to donate money, almost impossible to get companies to donate money. And that's the reason that drove us go to this charity festival and saying, listen, we can't get money from the normal sources, which are company donations or agency donations. We as Kenyans, we need to come together to support each other in this hour of need. And that's really what we're crying out to. Please get your phone and go to your pay bill and do 344-555 and donate 100 shillings, just 100 shillings or more if you feel led to.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And this is Jonathan Jackson. He's the chairman of the Jonathan Jackson Foundation, telling us about the festival that's going to be taking place on the 7th and the 8th of November online. It'll also be live streamed on KTN Home between 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock. So just watch on those 2 days and you'll be able to see the festival and at the same time participate in what the Jenga Jirani Festival aims to do, which is contribute money, raise resources so that you can help communities that are in dire need in various parts of the country. Thank you very much for speaking to us, Jonathan, and we wish you a great day. Time for us to take a break on KTN Home at 5 minutes to 8 o'clock. We'll be back shortly.
Spice FM, Nakuru. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
So, the Jenga Jirani Festival and what's going to be taking place around on that day, and you know the issue of very many organizations coming together to raise money to support communities while the government takes a backseat. Is this making the government just get used to?
Well, that argument is what was used with the proliferation of private schools. That people came in with the business of opening up schools, and it looks like the government took a backseat. I actually don't think they took a backseat. What they did was what they seem to have gotten into the habit of doing. The bare minimum.
Since we don't have to do that, since somebody's taking care of
That's
that.
a backseat city. They're in the same vehicle, but they're just go in the back.
Well, no.
And asleep.
No. Well, they're not actually asleep.
They don't know how far we are.
They are not asleep. They
are waiting for us to tell them we have arrived. So they
no, they are not asleep. They are not asleep. There are many things they do. You see, the conundrum here is always this. There are those people who work their heads off and who work their hands bare in trying to ensure that there are policies and there are ways in which things should be done. Then it moves up to the point where it should be implemented. Therein, the problem then rears its head. It doesn't quite go the way it should.
That's where the tsetse bites and then now they sleep. You see, that's the thing. We can talk. There are people in government, of course, who work on these plans, who are thinking ahead, who are thinking, how do we improve our education sector?
And they think clearly.
And they do very well. But there's the other side, which is supposed to be expanding the availability of schools. When is the last time that a new primary school was constructed in Nairobi, a new secondary school constructed in Nairobi, or in any of the counties? How many new government schools do we see coming up?
Rarely. What happens
going
is
in
that...
the number of population.
Rarely.
We see our population growing by, 10 million every 10 years?
Since you're asking about schools, ask about hospitals. Okay?
Yep.
And the answer will be the same. Rarely. Now, it doesn't mean that the government is doing nothing. No. That's why I said they seem to do the bare minimum. And that bare minimum, unfortunately, isn't...
impactful.
You don't feel the impact of it. I mean, you realize, look at when you have private organizations or private firms doing something like this, that's when you realize the magnitude of the problem in the country. With the bare minimum that is being done, you would think that it's that things are okay and are being covered they've not even begun to scratch the surface of the problem.
Again, there's this small matter of funding that we've received in the past with regards to the education, for instance, sector or the health sector. Now, the attitude seems to be, from what we see, the manifestation seems to be a complete dependence on this and an absolute abandonment of any effort that the government itself can make towards some of these things.
It's debilitating if you think about it.
Yes.
Because what it does is that it shackles you to this fallacy of aid, right? So you think that there'll always be help. And so you don't do what you need to do in order to make sure that this foundation is standing.
Yeah, somebody else is doing the job for you. Why?
So you don't bother.
Why bother?
And then the worm in this particular can is that even with those resources, they don't always go to what they are purposed for.
In fact, that's the biggest one.
Yes.
Coming up to 8 o'clock, this is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Let's look at what's happening in our region. We know there's some tension building up in Ethiopia, We know that Tanzania has just come out of an election and there has been some tension there with the opposition rejecting the results. We know there are elections coming up in other parts of the country, of the East African region. Let's have that conversation in the next hour. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room on Spice FM and KTN Home. It's now 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM.
Okay, still building up on Mombasa Road. We still have some traffic, and it's actually, well, it's becoming something of a norm, right? So people expect there to be traffic on Mombasa Road today getting to the CBD, or every day as it is, and that's exactly what's happening. Quite some. It was said that the Nairobi Mombasa Expressway will not burden Kenya. It seems to be burdening Kenya at this point. At least this new expressway that's being built is burdening Kenya, and a lot of traffic this morning as you're getting towards the CBD. So also on Thika Road coming off, the problem being caused by matatus at certain junctions, at certain stages, is what is causing traffic. Coming off of Kiambu Road today, 6 lanes so far. Trying to join Thika Road is a sport, is what is being called today. So that's where we have problems. 2 ferries still in operation in Mombasa. The normal 4 to 5 that work on a daily basis is not happening today. So there's a backlog and still long queues and long lines of vehicles and human traffic at the ferry this morning. So that's one to watch. Hoping that you plan it ahead of time. Okay, let us know where you might be stuck. Spice FMKE on Twitter, or text us on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2 minutes after 8, the conversation continues right here on Spice FM, on KTN Home, online, Spice FM KE on YouTube, on Facebook and Twitter, and spicefm.co.ke. As we begin the hour, C.T. Muga, you remind us today's 2-for-1 Proverbs.
Yes, the reason why the tortoise will carry the weight of its house forever is none other than fear.
Okay.
1B. A mind already exposed to knowledge is not difficult to educate.
Okay. So,
which also means a mind not exposed to knowledge is extremely difficult to educate.
Ni sawa kabisa.
Sure thing.
What's the latest from the American race, according to CNN?
Well, you know what they say, if it's on CNN, it must be true.
Who
says
that?
Well, you know, they.
The CNN.
They.
Yes.
They. Okay.
Right. So, if what we're looking at now is that the count is still on and waiting for key results to come out of these now, what are being called the key states. Georgia and Pennsylvania still waiting on that, with Donald Trump in the lead in Pennsylvania with 50.7% against Biden's 48.1%. There are 20 electoral votes in Pennsylvania, and there's a difference about 100 and 60,000 votes at the moment, and about 92% of the vote has been counted in Pennsylvania and still waiting for some to come through. But the remaining 8% is quite a significant number in terms of actual votes that they're waiting for. So they're looking at upwards now of 800,000 votes that they're waiting for to come in from Pennsylvania. And that count is slow, but they've said, again, that every vote will be counted. Another state that they're looking for to look at results coming out of Nevada, as well as Georgia. Georgia was seen to also be no debate when it came to it being red or blue. Georgia was one of those states that was definitely red when it came to the vote, but this now is giving some different results, as is Arizona, which almost now having been declared blue, right? So waiting also for results to come out of Nevada is still undecided, and it looks like from what we see that Arizona, as we say, was going in the way of Biden with 50.7% in his favor and 47.9% to Donald Trump. Okay, so
in the race to 270?
The race to 270 now, we're at 253 to Biden and 213 to President Trump. If Biden gets to the 270, he's got to get +1, and then that is what would help him to then be declared winner. So at 253, he's 17 short of the 270.
So essentially, you're saying if he wins Pennsylvania, that's it.
If he wins Pennsylvania, he's done.
He gets it.
Those are the numbers that essentially they're looking for, and those are the numbers that are hanging in the balance
20.
right now. And that's 20 electoral votes in Pennsylvania at the moment.
What do electoral votes represent, really?
So,
in your understanding?
So what you're doing is when you're voting in the US election, your vote doesn't actually go towards the presidential count. What it goes towards is the electoral college. You're basically saying with your vote that this is who you want to come in. You're basically giving this electoral college, which is made up of 535 odd individuals then, who then will say they vote either on the side of the Republicans or the side of the Democrat. So you're giving them the power, quote unquote, to make the decision.
So essentially, when they count the popular vote, as in these people voted for so and so, as we can see the numbers here, 69 million, etc., etc. That particular vote, what then is its purpose?
It's the popular vote. I mean, it lets you know who was the popular one, but the popular vote does not guarantee the winner. You could have won with the popular vote, but the electoral college gives you a totally different result.
And how
it's quite painful. It's quite painful for some people.
You can get a popular vote, but because of and I just studying it, and I see where they were coming from. The smaller states were saying that they also would like to have a say in who becomes the president, not just the what do we call it in Kenya? Of numbers. Tyranny of numbers. Not using tyranny of numbers then to go ahead and occupy Washington.
We don't just call it tyranny of numbers, we call it the big tribes.
Yes. It's not just the big tribes or the big regions of the country that will choose the president. So every vote that's cast across the country will count for something. So if a small, depending on the number of then seats that you have in the national government, then that also determines the number of electoral college votes that you have. The bigger ones will have more, the smaller ones will have, but those smaller ones also, when they come together,
they have a say.
And they mean something.
So is it that at the end of these 530 odd some people meet 39. Somewhere? Meet somewhere and sort of like cast this vote again, say, here I am representing these votes, or is it that when you've already won in that state, the votes that are allocated to the electoral college go to you?
Yes. The votes that are allocated to the electoral college then go to you, because it's split between two, either the Democrats or the Republicans. So, and that's what you're voting for when you cast your ballot.
So each campaign will then have picked its electors before the election. So we know we have 20 in what is Pennsylvania. So Trump has his 20, and Biden has his 20. They're all waiting to be called. So if it's Trump that takes Pennsylvania, the 20 will go and then they'll cast their vote for Trump. It's expected that they cast their vote for Trump. In them states where some laws are, I don't know, there's some issue about some laws and regulations that allow an elector to go and change their mind. There's some states where the elector is not allowed to change their mind.
Actually, there are two states, it's Maine and Nebraska.
There you go.
Yes.
They can go and they decide, you know what, I played these guys.
Me.
They picked me and they thought I am for this guy and I'm not. And then they go and they change their vote.
Actually, you know, it is very odd. When I was reading up on this, this electoral college was actually set up in 1787. It's a long time ago. It's 11 years after their independence. But the thinking behind it seemed to have been they wanted an alternative to electing the president. This idea of just electing the president by popular vote, they figured, no, this may not necessarily always go the way you want it. So let's provide an alternative, meaning they thought ahead. But what we now see, of course, is a manifestation of how some of these systems evolve over time. And with the independence or the quasi-independence of states, you then find that also coming into play. But the general rule is the same for most of the states in the U.S.
The interesting thing about this is that you can't. I mean, just like you can't predetermine what you're going to do until everybody goes and casts their vote. So you, as members of the Electoral College, essentially you're waiting in the wings. You can't then go ahead and say, I'm going to do something out of whim because I feel as if, or that I have made the decision. No. Essentially, so when you look at it, you say, then really, is it the people who have decided? Yes, it is. Because they've decided which side is going to take the day. The Electoral College is actually going ahead to rubber stamp, one way or another, what the people
the state has
what the voters have said.
In fact, in those early days, what they used to do, there'd be two votes. You're allowed two votes, one for the president, one for the VP. I read it and thought, okay, so it means if I like the president, I don't like his VP, then what do I do here?
You choose him and you choose the opposition VP.
The opposition VP.
It's an opportunity that I think we have with our elections because, and if you go by this electoral college system, it means if we were to go to 2007 in our elections, when the ODM party had more MPs than the people who actually were in government, then you would have had a situation where one could argue that
maybe not. Maybe we would have gone into counties.
We didn't have counties in 2007.
In 2007,
we didn't have
gone into
counties.
provinces. How many votes did he get in the 8 provinces?
Unfortunately,
and then you say in these 8 provinces, if they have X number of seats, we're not looking at how many MPs you've gotten because that then is a parliamentary system. It's how many number of seats do we have in, let's say, Central Kenya. Central Kenya has, let's say, just for purposes of conversation, 7 seats. So maybe those 7 seats then become the electors in the Electoral College. You may find that in 2007, PNU only got 4 out of the 7 seats. ODM maybe got 1, then another party got the other. So we can't really say that when we go into parliament, then all these people are going to vote for. But in the votes counted for president in Central Kenya, how many did Mwai Kibaki get? How many did Raila Odinga get? Mwai Kibaki has gotten the majority in Central Kenya, so he gets all the 7 electors in Central Kenya.
You see, we had provinces, but we also had constituencies. And if you remember, even with the American system, the representation is 1 senator, how many Congress people?
3.
2. Is it 2 or 3? 2. Yes, exactly. 2. So I am merely saying that with an electoral system, electoral college system such as this one, and I look at our election in 2007, we would have had a completely different discussion then. Because then, instead of just the popular vote being the issue here, the fact that someone had more numbers in the elected members of parliament, the discussion would have been different if it was an electoral system. But
that's what I'm saying, CT. I'm not seeing it that way. Because just pause. Just like
what
here,
exactly are you not seeing?
Just like here, we are not looking at how many senators the Republican Party gets determining who becomes president. We are looking at how many votes did you get in this particular state. So in our case, in 2007, in this particular province.
I suspect I haven't made my point clear. When someone, you see, at the heart of the discussion in 2007 was, how is it possible for someone to have voted for an MP or an MCA and then also not voted for the person who was representing the presidential campaign? That was the debate. And I am saying, with the electoral college system, that debate would have taken an interesting twist, because now, instead of simply looking at the winner take all as in the popular vote, there would be these other details that you would have been looking at. That really is my point.
Okay.
Yes.
And in that election, we have been reminded that there were very many other political parties that also had members in the National Assembly.
It is true.
So you look at it and say, all right, so people in this particular region voted for, the claim is that they voted for so-and-so as president, but then the president's party did not get as many members of parliament. It's possible that the people who voted for that president also voted for somebody in a different political party as MP.
That, my friend, is usually true, but only as an afterthought, because part of the reason why parties become powerful is not because their president got the majority of votes only. They are powerful because this is supported by the members of parliament that they also get in with their party. That's how it works, the world over. If you are a president and you do not have the power or the muscle in your parliament, then you're a lame duck president.
True.
Yes, completely lame duck.
True.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that debate of you've got X number of votes in the presidential election and then it's not reflected in the other seats. So did you really win that election or not? Has happened even in 2013. Look at Parliament. So there was tyranny of numbers in the National Assembly that went the Jubilee route. And the Jubilee Alliance candidates were the ones that were declared president and deputy president. But if you went to the counties and looked at the number of governors that the opposition had, it had more governors. So how would you balance that and say, so this is the presidential vote and how it went, this is the parliamentary vote and the Senate vote and how it went, but then look at the counties and the governors. So how come Jubilee did not have a majority of governors in 2013?
Precisely my point. That is why the debate would have been more interesting if we were actually taking the electoral college system and applying it to our situation. The debates that we had would have been energized and there would have been more things to discuss under that, and a further interrogation as to these anomalies that we're talking about would perhaps have had a different twist and turn to it simply because the system would have been different. That is really what I'm saying.
Back to the states, there's some contention in counting and recounting of votes in some.
It's not the first time this has happened in the States.
Why are they doing this?
Well, I mean, obviously this has come about because, I mean, first of all, the mail order voting has come into contention quite some this time. And looking at specific states like Pennsylvania, where there was a delay in the votes that reached by mail. And they've said, look, if there's a problem, we will count and count and count again. But because of the delay, that means everything obviously has not reached centers at the same time. It was not possible for that to happen. It's a process. You're looking at the entire country and votes coming in from different places. You could have somebody who would normally vote in Pennsylvania, for example, and is resident in California. And as those votes come through, that is what now they're counting, and the process is going to take some time. Even before counting started, we heard President Trump say on very many occasions that he had a problem with this mail order system, leave alone that it's been in existence for a very long time. But they had a problem with this because then it meant that more than one person could vote. Yesterday, we saw one case where they had the same name in Pennsylvania, interestingly enough, on the same ballot. But they said this was something that they needed to interrogate a little bit further because it's very possible that you had two people called Paul Smith. And then if you went ahead and looked through the things like the social security number, you could tell that it was two different individuals with the same name. And so that was clear that we could do something about. But it's interesting to me that the intricacy with which they deal with this interrogation is something. It's mind-blowing because, and then it's public. It's not hidden in some dark room somewhere under a candle, under any kind of candlelight. It is out in the open for everybody to see. And it's not this business of holding it up for everybody to see a number and you count 1, 2, 3 into the dead of night. It's put through a machine, the results come out, and you see exactly what it is. Who is this person? Where they've come from? How they've voted? And then if it's a painstaking process, they're more than ready and willing to go through that process so that, number one, every vote is counted. So that, number two, any kind of incidences that would point towards any kind of electoral fraud then is diminished. And they're saying, look, is it going to take us many days? Let it be so. Let it take us the number of days that it needs to take, but we're going to get this done. There was also a delay in Pennsylvania because, interestingly, one of the major centers where they were counting the votes yesterday, there was a water pipe burst. in the building. So that delayed any kind of counting for 4 hours the night before. And they said, okay, forget this. We're going to start again in the morning. And so everybody was saying, okay, during this time where the pipe burst, what was happening? Was there some kind of interference with the numbers being counted, with the ballots that had come in? And why is it that on this day is when there was a pipe burst? And then there were 4 hours where there was no activity in this particular center. So, I mean, so many things have come in, flying in the face of what would be a right and righteous process. But I think the message has been clear, and they've been insisting on that whatever has come in will be counted. And it's, again, out in the open. We are putting out these results as we get them, and everybody will get to see what has happened. Everybody's on the edge of their seat because they expected that, by the 4th of November, U.S. time, for example, whether you're on the eastern or the western side of the country, that everybody would have known what the result was. Nobody was expecting a delay, as you see, but
the results
people
that
are ready to
of,
wait.
Usually, because of this system of theirs, it is easy to tell. If you've captured a certain number of states, one can easily round up and do the arithmetic. Yes, and so they can tell. So even if the other votes pending, it is clear that you will have won. So even if the other votes come in, it isn't as though they will change anything. But it never has been that all the counting is completed on the day that people actually vote. It's never happened.
No.
It's always delayed. In fact, 2007, the year 2000 you speak of, 37 days after the actual voting was cast. 37 is when
Bush was
uncertainty. And that one, my friend, the debate around it, the Supreme Court again waded in. And it's unique in this sense. They declared that whatever decision they had arrived at should not be used as a precedent. Of course, that one now even raised even more questions. It is a precedent. You've decided. And then it was divided between those who said, something, some of those ballots you couldn't determine, you couldn't verify them. And that's why they kept going on and delaying and delaying and delaying. That is one side of the argument. The other side of the argument, we should just have continued until the very end, irrespective of how difficult it was. Because all they said was, stop. So the process was stopped. Now, therein lay the problem. But Algo simply said, it is fine. And he moved on.
And let's carry on.
The decision has been made.
Accept and move on.
Yes, but here
we have a
situation where, you're right, that is the father of accept and move on. Yes.
So yesterday, this is what we heard from the two candidates, the main candidates. Well, Kanye West is not in this clip. He was also a candidate in that election. But this is what we heard from Joe Biden and President Trump.
It's not my place or Donald Trump's place to declare who's won this election. That's the decision of the American people. But I'm optimistic about this outcome.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
We knew this was going to go long, but who knew we're going to go into maybe tomorrow morning, maybe even longer. But look, we feel good about where we are. We really do. I'm here to tell you tonight, we believe we're on track to win this election. It ain't over till every vote is counted, every ballot is counted. But I'm optimistic about this outcome. And I want to thank every one of you who came out and voted in this election. Keep the faith, guys. We're going to win.
Frankly, we did win this. That's a difference. Both have used the word win in their favor. One is definitive, the other one is prophetic.
But the definitive statement that's attributed to the president was being uttered yesterday when evidently all the votes had not come in.
That's the thing.
So what was he confident about, and what is this thing that they had won? Because if you talk about the popular vote, yes, there were clear signs that he was ahead. But as I said, the votes hadn't come in.
Well, I mean, if you want to look at the map, even of the continental United States right now, and look at the states who voted and how they voted, if you just look at the colors itself, you will see that, yes, President Trump at some point had garnered the popular vote. He had. Yes. And very few of those states had turned blue, which is now why the importance of then the electoral college vote comes into play. Because there are very few of those states, if you look around, that are that are blue in favor of Biden. And this is the thing. Now that's when it comes to that nitty-gritty is what is being counted now and said, okay, this is where the rubber meets the road. And the system, obviously being so pristine, the way in which the system operates is that you can't not count 1 or 2 votes here because they come as a block and it matters how then they vote. So you may see red all over the place, but it doesn't necessarily mean then that Trump has won. And it would appear, unfortunately, without having taken these things into consideration, that is what supplied the information then for the speech that he gave yesterday. Because as far as he's concerned, the country had voted for him.
The thing about Trump, though, he's consistent. He's very consistent. His pre-election or pre-voting statements pointed to exactly what he did. It's not as though he diverted from what he had purposed, what was attributed to him, and then what he actually uttered. He hasn't really changed.
He hasn't really changed.
You know, same. Because when someone comes out and makes a statement, and I listened to this yesterday as he was saying it, and it was essentially, I'm paraphrasing, we have been robbed.
Yep.
There's fraud.
Immediately after saying we won, we have been robbed. And he said, we will not allow it. The votes were still being counted. They hadn't all come in. Now, then those who analyze these processes to greater detail and who understand them, I've been listening to BBC on this for the longest time. What they say is that, yes, they've heard the accusations, they've heard mentions of going to the Supreme Court, but they haven't heard or seen any evidence to which supports the allegations that they're hearing. They haven't. They just haven't. Maybe they're there, but since they haven't, they can only say they haven't. But you know what is of interest? The issue of postal voting, which seems to be at the center of this discussion, it is also being reported that there had been requests by the electoral bodies in many states to have them simply, since they'd been posted, open them ahead of time. Republicans, it is reported, went to court to stop that particular process and said, no, we will wait until votes have been cast for this to be open. And remember, some of these things even went to court in an attempt to even stop the postal voting. But what happened? The court said, no, thank you. No, that's not happening. There's a process that, and this is why perhaps America is considered to be a great country. One of the things. They have a system which works, and you can rely on it to work because the legal system says this is it. It doesn't matter who you take it to. Even if you appointed that person, they'll tell you, no, excuse me.
Because their job is to uphold the law.
This is what the law says.
Yes. Their job is to uphold the law.
It's like, I know you gave me the job. I thank you for it. But this is what the law says.
Even the people in the electoral, the people who are managing the election, and now coming up, everyone speaking across the country is the Secretary of State in every county. And what they say is what they say.
Yeah, that's it.
There's no issue of
I'll think about it, or maybe we...
Or this campaign starting to say so-and-so must leave. Let's talk about that organization of the electoral management bodies in that country. 27 minutes after 8, this is Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a break, see what's happening in terms of the rain or the sunshine today around the country, and also the traffic. We are on Spice FM on KTN Home. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. The weather with Spice
so
FM.
We're looking at rains in certain parts of Nairobi at 17 degrees. We'll see highs of 24 today and then partly cloudy conditions later on in the afternoon. Nakuru looks like mostly cloudy conditions. Rain expected later, highs of 22 and lows of 15. It's 15 degrees in Nyeri, highs of 21 and lows of 15 with rain expected throughout the day. Looks like a rainy day and mostly cloudy conditions in Eldoret, 14 degrees at the moment, highs of 23 and lows of 13. Partly sunny in Kisumu at 21, highs of 28 and lows of 20. Kakamega is partly sunny at 21 degrees. We'll go to highs of 26 and come down to lows of 16. Light rain still happening in Mombasa at 25, highs of 29. And Malindi at 21. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 17 with partly sunny conditions throughout the day. Continues to come down in Sheets in Kampala at 22, highs of 27 and lows of 20 today. Sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam at 23. And Johannesburg at 13 degrees. Rain showers expected through most parts of the morning with highs of 22 and lows of 12. Lagos is still raining at 25. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 24. And for now, Kinshasa, it's partly cloudy at 23, rains coming later with highs of 30 and lows of 22.
Spice and everything nice, everything nice.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Okay, so you've done well to get off Mombasa Road when you did, but then you're trying to get onto Uhuru Highway and you realize that it's moving a lot slower than you expected. We know this is because part of the road has been shut off because of the expressway, and Kenya Power is trying to get its lines out of the way before they are destroyed. So that's what's causing traffic then. Uhuru Highway from Nyayo Stadium roundabout all the way to Westlands, dipping into the CBD here and there is an absolute mess, guys. It's moving very, very slowly, bumper to bumper in some cases. So this one requires quite a lot of patience. Mombasa Road as well. Even if you did get off, there's those who are still stuck then all the way back towards the SGR. So I'm even taking a breath on your behalf. Thika Road also, as you get into the underpass at Pangani, that's very slow right now. But from 9 o'clock, you should be fine. Let's see what it looks like in about a half hour or so. I forgot to tell you, the eastern and southern bypasses, you can use longer route to town, but you won't get stuck in traffic. Yes? Yes. All right. Spice FM KE, you know what to do on Twitter, or text us 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's also clear that we have won Georgia. We're up by 2.5% or 117,000 votes with only 7% left. They're never going to catch us. They can't catch us. But most importantly, we're winning Pennsylvania by a tremendous amount of votes. This is a major fraud in our nation. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list. Okay? It's a very sad. It's a very sad
All right,
moment. To me, this is a very sad moment.
And said, you believe that they had won Georgia by a huge percent so far. I mean, the percentage is 0.5% lead. Pennsylvania and all. So looking at also how the various major news outlets are reporting this, according to the CNN, in their own projections, it's 253 for Biden and 213 for Trump. That's in the race to this 270 electoral college votes. According to the Associated Press, it's 264 for Biden and 214 for Trump. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you look at Fox, you'll find a different figure and all that. But anyway, I wanted to ask the question of who's the Chebukati in America? Who's running the election?
Do we even know the person? Do they even?
How is it structured? And why is it that Trump is not mentioning their name or any other candidate for that matter, even in 2000? The issue of who is in charge of the vote count or opening the ballots or opening the polling centers does not emerge. The system itself is very well ring-fenced and guarded against manipulation or such direct manipulation from the politicians or the participants.
You know, the thing is, there is a certain pride the Americans take in the system of theirs. So that even the issue of rigging is such a remote and foreign thought. They believe it to be sacrosanct, and they believe that those who are charged with that duty will actually do what they are supposed to do. So anything to the contrary, let me not just say it's new, but it's bizarre.
Yep. Even as you see demonstrations or people coming out in the streets to express their anger or disappointment at how the voting and the tallying is going on, you're not seeing people forming up and forming crowds around where the counting is taking place. In Kenya, remember what we saw. We saw for example, I remember vividly in Kirinyaga, people throwing seats at a certain primary school where the voting was taking place. So you basically go for the electoral officials and say, this returning officer is biased, is working for this other campaign, and they should go. Or we have several agents who are complaining and saying how it was conducted here was wrong. But in this particular case, we are seeing images of people seated around desks, opening up the mail and just placing it there, and then it goes to the machine. And there is no noise around. There is no heckling. We don't hear any noises from outside saying, so-and-so, come out. We need you. We have to lynch you. Respect the system.
Because the system works.
Because the system is allowed to work. That's one of the other things. My push is that the system is allowed to work. We do not let our system work. Our system on paper is very good. What is it that would make our electoral system in Kenya so bad? Why is it that politicians would even come out and say that there is electoral injustice? It's because they try to manipulate that same system, and then they come out and say there's injustice. Leave the system to work. If we go to vote and we leave it, why should you be the one who is raising issues about that system?
True. I mean, so much so that what they have, the Federal Electoral Commission of the United States, so much so that the members of the Electoral College are only known to the Federal Electoral Commission. Everybody who's here, you don't even know who is the representative in your state. People don't know who these individuals are. Their names never come out. Their names are never shown to anybody. So you can imagine a system so strong and so well buffeted that even something that is meant to be kept in the uttermost secrecy is actually maintained. It's never that, okay, so we know that Eric is the guy who is in the county of Fulton in Georgia, so maybe we can go and have a word with him. It never even comes up. It never even rears its head.
Kidnap him on the eve of
right, on the eve of the election when he's supposed to now make this decision and go and cast his vote. The people that you see sitting at these desks opening envelopes are volunteers. Some of them are employees of the U.S. Postal Service, but quite a number of them are volunteers of the American public who even understand, because you're talking about letting the system work, coming and spending nights opening envelopes, because that's what they're doing. They're like worker bees, opening envelopes and setting them down because they know the system so strong there's nothing you can even do. And it's out in the open. It's not in the dark. Everybody knows what's going on. You do your bit, you go.
When there were allegations that this postal system may actually be ripe for corruption, that's when I actually first heard of the person who is, should we call the Postmaster General of the U.S. And he came defending it, giving the history of the service and saying that, yes, there have been complaints like this before, but with very little evidence that it's actually anything that one should worry about. And the discussion even went further. There are some states that have even in the past held their elections simply through that system, predominantly through that system. So the actual people queuing and voting has been minimal. So it isn't a system that hasn't been tested and tried before. The commission that comes to one's attention when you look at the American election is the Federal Election Commission, set up in 1974, the current one that we have. And what it does, it monitors financing during an election. They have laws about limits. They have laws about how you go about financing it. And they guarantee that you adhere to those norms. Because if you don't, that's an electoral
fraud.
Precisely. Now, that you have people in charge and they're not at the forefront of any discussion tells you the system is bigger than the person who heads it. And that the system works and the trust in it has gotten to the point where it's actually taken for granted. So you really don't need to know who's in charge.
Yep.
It's not
and
important.
that trust is cultivated and it grows. You make people trust the system by letting the system work.
Yes.
If you start interfering with the system, if, for example, now the issue of the choice of Supreme Court judge was trying to also cast aspersions on the independence of the Supreme Court. And that should not be the case. And that's why there was such serious backlash on that conversation of, listen, presidents are the ones who choose the Supreme Court judge, whatever, right? So, but this person goes in there, look at their track record. Are they independent-minded? Are they not independent-minded? Have they demonstrated at any point in time that they are not above reproach?
And
if they're clean, in their track record, then it doesn't matter who nominates them.
You see, but the debate that took center stage here wasn't the qualifications of the nominee. It was what had happened during the Obama time when 8 months to the election, a similar situation arose.
Yep.
And the Republicans were up in arms, completely up in arms, and absolutely up in arms. But that you have a Supreme Court where there's a balance favoring one side in terms of the affiliation. That isn't new. But remember, even with that, it was already in existence. Just one number was added.
Yep.
When the matter of this postal voting system went to that, they said, no, that thing is going to continue. Remember, there had been an attempt to stop it. Yes, this very, very Supreme Court that leans heavily on the Republicans said, no, excuse me, it's going to continue. So it isn't as though they sided with the president simply because they're Republicans. No, they sided with the law.
The law. It's the upholding of the law that comes into play here, and I think that's why you see that nobody's really up in arms or really shaking and say, "Oh my goodness, somebody might go to the courts and try to stop the result of this election." Nobody's really jittery about it because they also have an understanding that it is for the courts to uphold the rule of law. It is not for the courts to be partisan on whatever side it is you want to look at. They understand, and they're working in a system which begs indifference. They're working in a system which knows that it is the law that takes precedence over anything else. It doesn't matter. You can have emotions from here until the end of the universe. It really doesn't matter. They have a job and they're going to uphold that and do it as it may. If we look at what's going on right now in Georgia, just as we come off the sentiments that President Trump talked about yesterday. So that's why many were saying that he made a premature statement in talking about Georgia, for example, because we're looking at 49.7% for Trump and 49.1% for Biden, with the vote still not being completed in terms of counting. So it was extremely premature where they thought that they had won, Georgia, which everybody thought they had, because we're talking again about a state that is smack dab in the middle of the southern white United States, which normally would have gone Republican. But now you can see the split. And what I'm talking about, the counties that are left are urban counties. And the trend that has been seen most recently is that the urban centers around the continental United States have been voting Democrat. And that's what they're looking at. And that is what the split could be. If you look at Pennsylvania and what is left there, 765,000 mail-in ballots left to count out of the 2.6 million. So at this morning, they're about 1 million. They've done some good work. They're working through the night. 120,000 mail-in votes left to be counted. So they're still counting votes as well as bringing in the mail, right? So two things are happening at the same time. Trump also talked about the fact that they're trying to sneak in votes. And I think it needs to be clear that voting ended 12 hours after the polls opened. So the active voting, aside from the mail voting that was done previously, the period for voting was 12 hours, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And they were very clear. It ended at 6 and then counting began thereafter. What he was trying to say essentially is that they were using the mail system to allow more people to continue voting even after the 6 p.m.
What are the rules across the states? Why are you allowed, are you expected, for example, to say that by the time we are closing the actual polling of the day, all the mail-in votes will be here and seen? Or can we start counting and then you're still saying, oh, postman has arrived with more? Because that also raises, I mean, if it was in Kenya, that would be an issue. We have finished counting. People started sending in their mail weeks in advance. That mail should all be here. According to, if the postal system is as efficient as it claims to be, then all the mail should be here. By the time we start counting, all of it should be here.
But unfortunately, there are other things going on with the postal service apart from elections.
Yeah, but the only thing that they're doing is transferring mail.
No. That's what they do on a daily basis.
What else are they doing with mail?
With the votes, they have added responsibilities. So their whole processes are likely to be weighed down.
There you go.
Yes.
So it is undergoing some stress testing.
It is.
And which was the questions that were arising, that using this stress, when you stress the system, then you can also manipulate the system by stressing it. By ensuring that it gets bogged down. Look, you can do it. It's not necessarily yes, but you can do it. I'm not saying that it is what can happen, but it can also happen.
Sure, but
you have a mail-in system. It is used to this. It has never undergone this kind of a stress before. So you have pushed mail into it. And that's why you're saying, why is it that some mail will be arriving on the night of counting? Where was it?
But why shouldn't it?
Where was it?
Why shouldn't it? It is normal for this sort of votes to always be counted weeks after the actual election, the person-to-person election takes place. It is not unusual. There's nothing which is being mentioned which is unusual.
What normally happens? Can you be voting? Can you send your mail on the day of the election?
No.
No.
When is it that you're supposed to stop sending mail?
It closes a couple of days before.
A couple of days before. And that means that by that the postal system has a couple of days to transport the mail from this area to a specific area. You're not saying that you're taking all this mail to Washington, to Bomas. No, you're taking to that local area.
Yes, you are.
So why is it that then you take 4 days for this mail to arrive?
But
it's not about it arriving.
No.
It's about now when they're opening and actually starting to do the count.
They have already arrived.
But you must understand
Yes.
that this year they had more mail than they have ever had in the history of mail voting because of COVID.
Good.
More people took the option to vote via mail than they ever had in history. 100 million votes via mail is a number they've never seen.
Okay. So 100 million extra, 100 million votes, but all of it posted within at least 4 days before the voting system, the voting day, right? 100 million mail for you to transport to the area that is supposed to go at least that time before. So that's the question I was asking. Are there regulations and laws that says, even ordinarily, watch out today when there was COVID, so we have more people. Even 4 years ago, was it possible for you, was it likely for you to find that we have already started counting, we are in 4 a.m., we are counting, and then the postman arrives with more mail and says, oh, I've got more votes coming in?
Is it ordinary or is it possible?
Yeah, was it ordinary? Is it allowed?
Well, I don't know.
That the mail continues arriving after we've already closed. We've closed the ballot. We've closed polling. People have been told you're no more polling. We have started the process of counting this that is here physically. We even go to a point of starting to count the mail, and then more mail is still arriving.
What happens usually is there are states that allow the mail votes to actually arrive even before the actual date. And this has been a debate. Now, because of the numbers, there are states that have actually gone and accepted that mail can arrive even after. They have accepted.
Right.
Yes. Not all, some have, because this issue has come up and they've said, well, given the circumstances, they've allowed for it. So legally, they have actually made it possible for it to arrive. Now, what you're saying is that because of considerations like this, it is possible for there to be fraud. Then I would argue then, if I were to take your argument, that it is possible for there to be fraud even before that.
Yes.
But we don't have a history of there having been fraud. This is the thing. Because it can't be that this is the only election where the stakes have been high to the point where people
simply because you haven't been robbed before doesn't mean that you cannot be robbed. City. This is a plain obvious. We shouldn't even be having this conversation.
No, we must.
Simply because you have not been robbed doesn't mean that you cannot be robbed.
We must.
Simply because the Russians have never been proven to use social media to vote to rig an election doesn't mean that we cannot have a conversation about Russian involvement in social media.
That issue of Russian involvement is a debate, and there has actually to date been no substantial evidence given as to whether they were involved or not.
Yeah, but doesn't mean that it was impossible.
Well, it's interesting. I think what we're looking at here is that every state, because of it being a federal system, every state has its own rules. And if we look at specifically states where we saw this problem, for example, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, they actually do not allow any kind of opening of ballots until election day. Right? It does not allow election officials to process or count ballots until election day. Michigan election, for example, workers can begin processing ballots a day in advance, but they cannot be tabulated until November 3rd, right? So they were, according to rules in certain states, there are certain things that you can or cannot do according to the federal system within those states. And you'll find that it is those states that only allowed counting to happen on the day of the election is where we have the issue now. Pennsylvania, Michigan as one of them, saying that you cannot open, you cannot verify signatures, you cannot remove privacy sleeves, you cannot do anything like that until election day itself. So even if the mail, even if the mail is here, even if all the votes are here, that is how you'll be looking at it until election day.
That's what my question is, can they still arrive after?
Yes.
Opening is one thing, because they're talking about that.
Yes.
Have they specified about arrival?
Yes, the answer is yes.
Like they can still arrive, they can still receive even after you've started voting and counting.
Yes, some
all right,
counties
so
have,
there was a
yes.
controversy, and this is not just with the election, with the mail-in system in New York, right? And it's among the things that the Trump campaign was using to say, look, we have seen what has happened in New York, we've seen what has happened in other states actually as well, with the mail-in system. The issue of its efficiency and it going through a stress test and it appearing to fail that stress test. My submission here today is, yes, it has worked. It has been very many years of working, but also it presents an opportunity for someone to see, I see. If we push it, we can get it. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have done it, but it's a possibility that it could also be used to manipulate.
Yes, it is a possibility.
There's a possibility that, votes could start, arriving and appearing, and then you're like, okay, so do we have enough pressure to go through the entire verification process, to do the entire counting,
so essentially you're saying they would have a
counting.
case of ballot stuffing.
Yep.
It is possible. It's not impossible. You see, my argument was not that it isn't possible. My argument was, if you have a system that is as thorough as the one that we're made to believe the American electoral system has, then where would the stuffed ballots go to? Because every ballot is verified.
It is verified. And so now we're looking at those particular states. And just in answer to your question, I mean, just looking at what they say, counting votes could take longer than usual because many states will allow extra time for ballots to arrive after election day, as long as they've been postmarked on or before the 3rd of November. So that means you would have posted you would have voted on November 3rd at the latest, and you can post it on that day. So it's possible for it to come, even if it's express shipping 24 hours later, 2 days later, 3 days later, and that's put into consideration, so long as it's postmarked. So you can imagine all of that information is what is in the minds of these individuals who are opening. If you get a ballot, for example, that comes in on the 5th of November, you're not going to take that one because the rules are clear. You see, and like we said, every state has the rules in which they're supposed to follow and go by. So I think with the way the system has been set up, all of these questions that we're asking and looking at it, those have been taken into consideration and been made provision for. To say, okay, yeah, sure, you voted the day before via mail system. You voted, but you couldn't vote via mail on the 4th of November. You had to have done it before that, up until a day before the election. And that's taken into consideration.
But this unusual thing, remember, we were saying earlier on that if you look at the election and the individuals, they all seemed unlikely. So, Eric, you are right in this respect. What is unlikely to happen in a system that is that well regulated can actually happen. That thing which you think cannot happen, somebody may look at it and say, perhaps this is the
opportunity in it.
This is the opportunity you have, because nobody expects it, so they will not see it because they don't expect it.
Something about the postal system, like we're talking about that congressional race in New York. In June, COVID times, they had an unprecedented number of mail-in votes that were being sent. And the system was basically just pushed through the test, and it cracked. And that's it. It cracks, it starts raising these questions. Maybe in the 7 minutes to 9 o'clock, it's time for us to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. This conversations happen on Spice FM every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. If you're in Nairobi, we are on 94.4. In Mombasa, it's 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru, 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, and Malindi is 97.7. Join us again tomorrow on KTN Home, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. In the Situation Room is Eric Latif, CT Muga, and Nduoko.
Spice FM, Nyeri.
All right, 7 minutes to 9, and they have filed lawsuits left, right, and center. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia. That's the Trump campaign. Looking at what's happening so far, according to CNN, the projection is still the same. Even according to the AP, their projection is also still the same. And this is 253 for Biden and 213 for Donald Trump. According to CNN, is in the race to 270. The one that gets 270
plus one
wins it. Plus one what?
Plus one. They must get 270 plus one.
Plus one is what? 271?
Yes.
It's 269 plus 1.
Why don't they just say
271? It is 270, my dear. You get 270, you have the majority, because the half of that is 269.
238.
Yep. So the one that gets the 270, that's it. No one else can get 270. So just 17 for Biden, and then he can rest easy and say, I'm the president-elect. Wait for January to be sworn in, and the country moves on. Until then, even the kind of tension that we're talking about, if you look at the kind of the way this thing is dragging out and the way they're boarding up their businesses, that tension that we're anticipating is not there in terms of violence and that, is it? It's not being seen to that degree.
It's the rhetoric that took center stage because people then read into the rhetoric and presumed. But if you ask me, I was going to use a word that is inappropriate. If you look at the protests, good word that I've now chosen, the protests that arose because certain individuals of color had been killed, and the circumstances surrounding those deaths were clearly pointing to racial decision making, and the length of time those protests had lasted. If you then bring in an election into it, and you bring in the sides and then the utterance that have followed, you can't blame someone for thinking that, for all you know, people may decide not just to riot but to break into shops. We've had situations in the US where you have a power outage and people loot. Power outage. And people storm into shop, take things, or people riot and they do the same thing. It's happened before. So it's not unprecedented that if temperatures seem to be rising, as they appear to be rising in this case, it made perfect sense for people to protect themselves.
To do that.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is that it's encouraging to see that this hasn't happened.
No, it hasn't happened.
Maybe it's still and as this happens, as this drags on, so are the temperatures coming.
The temperatures are cooling.
People are just coming and they're like, okay, we accept. We can see what happened here, right? We can now understand what exactly happened. So it's actually may be possible that this is what was we were thinking that it's being Kimeibiwo in this area. Okay, maybe it wasn't. Maybe we actually didn't get the numbers that we expected to win. So the supporters may just decide, all right.
With every election cycle,
we're going to complain, but no need to go out.
With every election cycle the world over, there are always new entrants into that electoral process. And sometimes when people talk about what they anticipate and they expect, they're not actually taken into consideration. And the numbers are usually considerable. In a country like ours, the growing population, every 5 years, if you look at, just take the numbers of students who leave school, high school, they are considered to be adults of voting age and they can get identity card, which means they can actually vote. So if you say, for instance, that they are 500,000, for purpose of discussion, so it means by the end, those 5 years, you have 2.5 million people. 2.5 million people are very many people.
Those are many people.
They are very many people. If you give it a 10-year cycle, my goodness, you're talking about 5 million. And yet, our population is not one that is steady. It's an increasing population.
Sure.
So the number is actually higher than what I'm suggesting. Now, that influence, if you remove it out of the equation when you're trying to look at what might happen, then you'll miss it completely. I guess to understand it, you need to look at, as you said correctly, the composition of MCAs in our counties. They're mostly young. Now, that is where you actually see the power of this youthful voter taking place. You actually see it. And even if you look at members of parliament, you will see there is an increase. There are very many members of parliament who fall in that category of people who are youthful.
Yeah.
But that is them understanding that they have this power which they can actually use, and they're using it. Now, America can't be different. If you see, like, people when they talk about Hispanic votes, they assume that it's a homogeneous group. It isn't.
It isn't. It was clear in Florida.
Yes, it's not homogeneous. Florida, they argue that the majority of Hispanics there are actually of Cuban extraction. If you go to the western part of the U.S., they'll be of Mexican. And then the other South American countries or people who originally from those Southern American countries being part and parcel of the electorate. So, and their thinking and the reasons behind who they support is also different. it is assumed also that the black vote, when it comes to voting, they'll vote Democrat or they'll vote Republican. It is not true.
Not necessarily.
It's not true. You see, one of the things that people forget when they mention Abraham Lincoln, they forget Abraham Lincoln was a Republican.
So let's take a break. Let's go to the top of the hour. We want to see what's happening on the roads, and then we'll begin a conversation in the 9 o'clock hour, as we've been doing in the last couple of days, with empowering you to get your business, more business, get your business visibility online. And we'll be talking to our Google expert, Rosemary Opio. She's the SME lead for Google in East Africa. So we want to understand what tools are available for you that you can use to get your business online, to get your business more visibility, to get to interact and engage more with your potential clients and even your clients, your repeat clients. Good morning. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now 9 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
The situation on Kiambu Road looking a tad better as they're trying to then join the Thika Superhighway. Not too bad at the moment. Thika Road didn't give up those terrible vibes this morning. It was slow in some parts, but it's looking better now. Where it is jamming up is on Jogo Road as you're trying to get into the city centre. That's moving very slowly. As you do get into the city centre, right around Afia Centre there, it's a clog up right opposite the railways as you're trying to get then past Harambe Avenue into the city. There is a problem. Mombasa Road right now is a parking lot. Juja Road on the other side is moving very, very slowly as well. Uhuru Highway then from the Nyayo Stadium roundabout all the way through to Westlands. Very, very slow this morning, guys. Nail-bitingly slow. And I think we just need to see how we can apply some patience in this one. And we know that there's some roadworks going on right now by KPLC, so that means that it's going to slow down even more. Okay, so let's see what it looks like in a short while, but for now looks good. And the question about the ferry is still at 2. It's likely to be still at 2 for most parts of today, so prepare for some heightened levels of traffic in Mombasa today.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2.5 minutes after 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's a Situation Room. It broadcasts to Nairobi on 94.4. Malindi 97.7, Nyeri is 90.9, Eldoret is 96.7, 96.0 in Nakuru, 102.5 in Kisumu, Mombasa is 87.9, and we are online www.spicefm.co.ke, SpiceFM KE on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. Who's commenting online and what are they saying online as we begin this new hour with Rosemary, and then we'll be looking at today's double proverbs.
Well, many things are happening. When we looked at the youth agenda, for example, before we go into this, only ways for legislators first to understand that youth are those under the age of 40 and embrace that. Set up seats in Parliament for the youth, same way as they are setting up for women, and then we are ready to go. It's a ticklish laugh when an old ogre stands up and publicly declares he's fighting for the youth. Yet he cannot fight for the elderly who suffer most and have zero representation.
Who in his age bracket?
My goodness. Laban says, the government must be more concerned about the youth being given positions, but as of now, Uhuru's government has done nothing. Yeah. The narrative of the youth that they're the future should change. It's high time youth started seeing themselves as the present.
So future story.
Out.
Future story. Let us be given story. Okay? It's always let us be given, let us be given, let us be given, let us be given.
You don't like the youth city.
It's not a question of not liking the youth. If you follow the examples of all these leaders we keep talking about, and you look at what they did in their youth before they ascended to the position we have now, they didn't sit and wait for someone to give them something. That's the whole point I'm trying to make.
Did you have a painful youth?
What
happened?
I actually had a very pleasant youth.
So now, because you had a pleasant youth and because you had the opportunities and you got the opportunities and you took the opportunities, that's why you look back and wonder.
No, in my time, actually, it wasn't even looking for opportunities. The opportunities called you.
Yeah, you see?
It was a very different setting. But because they called you, it lulled your mind, and very many people who are of my ilk sat and thought things would happen to them. You think this story has begun now? We were also told we're future leaders of tomorrow. And tomorrow is here today. So,
all right, let's look at the double proverbs and then we talk business. Proverb number 1A is about, what did you call the tortoise in Yoruba?
Ijakba.
Ijakba. So say, don't say tortoise. Say.
The reason why the Ijakba will carry the weight of its house forever is fear. Did I say it correctly?
Very well.
Thank you very much. All right. A mind already exposed to knowledge is not difficult to educate. Conversely, a mind that is not already exposed to knowledge is really very difficult to educate.
Let's talk business. Get your business online. Rosemary Momanyo-Pio, the SME lead for East Africa at Google, has been with us. She's a resident expert on matters of getting your business online. And so far, she's taught us about Google My Business, how you can put your business online, how you could create this profile. All you need to do is go to google.africa118.co.ke, and then they can help you to set up your business profile online. When people search, they come and see. And she's also given us the statistics to justify why you need to go there, because that's where more and more people are, and that's how more and more people are making the purchase decision. Today, let's hear what she has to teach us. Rosemary, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Miss Rosemary. How are you?
Oh, wow.
I am fine, thank you.
Eric is regressing.
What morning do, morning PP. Memories, okay.
What do you want to teach us today, Mwalimu?
So today we were able to successfully be able to pin the dashboard. So I'm going to take you through how this dashboard actually works, because it has some powerful insights. And so allow me to just share with you my screen really quickly.
Okay.
And what you see now in front of you is the dashboard. So how you land here. You're an SME. You've gone to google.africa118.co.ke. You have given them the information that is required to create for you a profile. They have built for you a profile. They have verified the profile. And then step 3, you have then claimed it. Now it's yours. It's now in your possession. So now it's in your hands. Now what can you do with this profile? So I'm going to spend today and tomorrow taking you through this very powerful dashboard to highlight to you the kinds of things that you would see as an SME with a business profile. So the first page is what you'll see when you log on to your profile. Is you'll see this page. It's your home page. Now the home page gives you a high-level overview of your profile. So you're able, in this case, to see how to create a post, how to add a photo. If you want to create an ad, it's all there. And here's an example of what an ad could look like if you wanted to create your first ad, again, through the profile. That's all very possible. When I scroll down, you'll see a high-level snapshot on my performance over the last 28 days. So this is currently the profile of my partner, Africa 118. They're the partner who helped verify the SME. So you'll see from their lens what an SME would overall see for themselves. So you'll see the number of views that they have received in the last 28 days. You'll see the number of searches that has popped up with their results and the activity. Activity could be things like phone calls to the website, to the profile, requests for directions. It's the overall activity in the last 28 days. You'll also see here their latest post that they did some time back. This was done in June. And then you'll also see the option for customers to then upload photos. So if you have a store, in this case, a city, Customers who have been able to interact with you can then upload posters or photos about their experience with you. So you can be able to show customer photos on your profile. And then, of course, you'll see here a high-level overview of their latest reviews. They're currently reviewed at 4.9 or almost 5 stars, right? So this is your overall homepage, which is a snapshot of your business profile. When I go to the next tab, it's posts. So it's a very simple step. If I want to create a post to drive engagement, I click on the post and it tells me, what do I want to do? Do I want to showcase a product? Then I indicate the price. Then I describe it, as you can see over here. This was done 1 day ago.
Wait, Rosemary. So on Google My Business, I can create and share posts like I do on social media.
Absolutely, yes. And it takes 3 steps. Add a picture of the post that you want to highlight. If it's a product that you are selling, indicate the price, high-level description, and you click on Try Now, and it goes live instantly. So it's super easy for you to create posts from the business profile.
And then how do people see it? Must they search for them to see this post that I've posted, or are they going to be able to scroll down their timeline on Google like they do on Facebook and Twitter and see what I've posted?
Yeah. So if they're on your profile, if they've searched for, in this case, they're an marketing agency, they'll type that and they'll be able to see the post. Or they'll type your profile and then they'll be able to see your post.
Okay. So this also appears when on the search engines, someone will be able to see my latest post.
Exactly.
If they searched in my business category or my business name, then the search results comes. They'll be able to see what I recently posted. Let's say it's this beautiful pair of shoes made out of rat skin.
Yes, they would see that. Yeah, they would see that. And so
I sell these things.
Jack of all trades, great.
Exactly. And then the other interesting part here is on the info. So the info is really now what's important to any business profile. Here is where if they were to they're able to stand out. So on the info tab, you'd see here you would indicate your location. So in this case, my partner is based in Rainbow Towers, Mutisi Road, Westland. You would see their service areas. You would see their hours of operation. So if you're for instance, you want to change your hours, you'd come here, click on the little pencil bar here and make an edit.
Okay.
If you wanted to add more hours, you'd indicate your phone number. You'd indicate, if you do have a website that most of your mails don't have, you'd indicate your website here. And then if you want to allow for appointments, you can link directly to the appointments tab on your website. And of course, you'd indicate the service industry that you're in. So this is where you'd now go in and make any edits that you want to showcase on the profile at the end of the day. So it's a very powerful section that allows you to make the necessary changes that you require to help you stand out on the business profile. And then the other part I wanted just to highlight to you, and I'll spend some more time here, it's quite interesting, is the piece around insights. I mentioned to you that it's a powerful tool for you to understand how you are being viewed by your customers. And so in this case, you're able to find out how people are finding you. So there are 3 types of searches, right? Those who type your business name directly, those who find you by knowing that you are called CT in this case, or those who discover you because of the kind of industry that you're in, and those who discover you based on the brand that you're in as well, the brand that you carry. So you can see here from the point of this particular partner, the bulk of their queries come because people know who they are. They understand their name, they know their name, and then another percentage come to them through discovery. 10% come to them through discovery. They're looking for marketing partner, marketing agency, and they stumble upon them.
How does this help, Rosemary? I mean, I keep coming back to how would this help directly in terms of somebody's business?
Right. So as you can see here, that's a good point to do. In this case, you can see the bulk of their searches came from people typing the keyword Africa 118. That is their actual name. So if they were to go ahead and make a post or create their first ad, they have a very strong brand. So they'll leverage on the fact that people already know them, and they'll make sure they highlight the name Africa 118 on all of their posts and all of their ads. right? So it shows you the number of people who've typed in that keyword Africa 118.
Okay.
And if I scroll on, I'll see the others. They also show up in Africa Agency. It's less than 10 searches in a particular month. But the bulk of the searches are the keyword Africa 118.
Okay.
So as an SME, if you have this dashboard, you're able to say, fine, the insight here is my brand is strong. Make sure I leverage my brand when I'm communicating any post to try and drive engagement or building my ad. So you're able to then know that you have high awareness.
Okay.
Right? Okay, then the other thing is, how are they showing up and on what platforms? In this case, they're showing up significantly on both search and Google Maps, right? So you're able to see that people are able then to align to the fact that they can still be able to get directions through Google Maps and go to this partner, or they can search for them on Google Search. What you'll find is if people are using Google Maps, if you're a person who sells products, like in this case, City Shoes, if they're using more Google Maps to find you, it means that they're close. They would like to come to your physical store. So if you find that your queries are coming mostly through Google Maps, it means that there's going to be a higher chance that you'll be getting more requests for directions, and therefore they'll be coming to physically visit you in your shop.
Okay.
Right.
Now,
and then,
Rosemary, there are people who will listen to this. They know completely that they want this service. They want to go online. They want to Africa 118 to help them to put their business profiles online. But after that, managing it, they may feel that this is a bit too much work that I don't want to get involved in. I want to focus on what I'm good at, which is making the product or sourcing the product and selling the product. Are there now, how can they get then help somebody to help manage this thing, to be posting regularly, to be looking at the statistics, at the analytics and seeing this is what's happening, therefore I need to tweak my profile on Google My Business this way?
Yes, yeah. So the first month, we try our best to ensure that we educate SMEs on the power of the insights that they can then be able to glean from to help them improve their business. But I think if you are not technical savvy and you just want to just sell, what I'd say at the very least, make sure your info is correct, right? So if you are to change your phone number or you're to change your location, just at the very least, just make sure that your info here is correct. Your phone number is current, your opening hours are current. That way, at the very least, people can find where you are and can phone you. If you have time and you want to do one level of engagement, I would highly recommend that you, at the very least, create some posts to try and drive engagement, or at the very least, try and encourage customers who have used your product to give you reviews. Just those three things.
Okay.
Make sure your info is correct. If you can create one or two posts, even a month is adequate enough, and then encourage reviews. And then the rest is fine. The rest, it will self-manage. But we try at least to educate our SMEs to allow for adequate and correct information, drive engagement, and at least get some insight if you can to help you become better in what you do. Yeah.
Does this process ever stop? Sounds ridiculous as a question, but it sounds like something that you must continue doing to keep the pace with your business. What do you encourage in this?
Yeah, so if you want to grow, if you want to expand, you always have to continuously innovate.
Sure.
I like that word Kaizen. It's continuous improvement. I mean, it's imperative that if you want to be successful, you want to be able to thrive and to keep growing, you want to stay up with the trend. So I'd encourage you highly that as a business owner, find out what's happening in the marketplace. What are your competitors doing? How do you rank against them? And what are they doing that you need to start doing as well? So I'd encourage an SME that at the very least, if you want to remain relevant, keep up with the trend. Just understand what's happening in your industry and learn.
Because a lot of people may think, okay, well, I've done the page, I've taken a stab at it, it looks great, I've put out some great posts, then I can just continue selling. And as I've sold, then I don't need to do any of the back office work. And to discourage people from that, this is actually a tool that you can use to continue propelling your business forward.
Right, yeah. So in that case, if you don't want to do much, at the very least, encourage your customers to give you reviews. That way, at least as you keep selling, you keep getting reviews. And hopefully you can look at those reviews once a week at the very least and see what people are saying. And if the reviews are positive, keep at it. If they're negative, figure out what you need to do to change and become better in your service or offering. So I'd say at the very least, look at the reviews, encourage reviews, and try and course correct along the way.
I'm sure we're getting to a stage now where people have been listening to the various episodes that we've had so far, and they'd like to ask you some questions. One of these days or going forward, we'll be able also to create a moment where you can respond to one or two queries from business persons who would like this to take advantage of the services that are being offered by Google, right?
Absolutely. I'm available and here to support
Very
and
good.
answer questions.
So just go to google.africa118.co.ke and you'll be able to get in touch with Africa 118. They'll help you. They're a partner with Google. They are helping SMEs to get their visibility online. And all the episodes, every time that we talk with Rosemary, every day we upload this as a separate video on our YouTube channel, Spice FM KE. Just go to our channel, Spice FM KE. You'll find the episodes, Grow Your Business with Google. That's Grow Your Business with Google. That's the title of the series. You'll find episode 1 up to the present episode. John, what episode are we on now? Today is episode 8. So you'll find it shortly on YouTube. You'll be able to go there, find what Rosemary has been teaching us so far. You'll also find a testimonial from Wangari, who was telling us about her business and how she's been able to use this and to take great advantage of what is there. Very, very good to hear from you today, Rosemary.
My pleasure. Have a good day.
Yeah,
Thank
have
you,
a
Rosemary.
good day. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow is Friday. Yes, tomorrow.
Tomorrow is Friday. Yes.
All right. Bye-bye. So this is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, 20 minutes after 9 o'clock. Let's look at what's happening skywards. Is it going to rain again today or not? And then we'll continue with more conversations. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
All right, rain's still
Spice
coming
up
down in
your
certain
life.
parts of Nairobi at 17. We'll see highs of 24. And in Nakuru, mostly cloudy conditions at 18. Highs of 22 and lows of 15. 16 degrees and rain coming down in Nyeri as well. Highs of 21 and lows of 15. Partly sunny conditions in Eldoret. Highs of 23 and lows of 13. Partly sunny in Kisumu at 24. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 20. Kakamega is partly sunny at 24, highs of 26 and lows of 16 today. We'll see light rains in Mombasa through most parts of today, highs of 29 and lows of 25. And it's partly sunny in Malindi at 24, highs of 26 and lows of 17. Light rain continues in Kampala at 27 degrees the high, currently at 23. We'll see lows of 20. It's partly sunny in Dar es Salaam at 26, highs of 28 and lows of 23. Johannesburg at 13 degrees, experiencing light showers throughout the morning, 22 degrees the high and lows of 12. Its light rain continues in Lagos, highs of 31 and lows of 25. It's mostly sunny in Kinshasa at 23, with highs of 30 today. Some rain will come in later. Going into the afternoon in Beijing, it's 16 degrees and sunny conditions, highs of 17 and lows of 5. Whereas in Paris, it's clear skies at 4 degrees, highs of 11 and lows of 3. And clear skies in London as well. We see highs of 10 and lows of 4. And we'll finish things off in New York, where it's 12 degrees on Thursday morning, very early, and clear, 18 degrees the high and lows of 11.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings
All right,
done
23
right.
minutes after 9. The conversations continue. CT Muga. Let's talk about democracy in the continent of Africa.
Every time we talk of democracy,
continent.
yes, exactly.
Africa.
The real thought is that this is a Western concept. But is it really? In the 1960s, President John F. Kennedy made a statement that was popularized, then summarized, and then given new meaning. And the new meaning that we got from it is that we live in interesting times. And yet, in reality, that actually is taken really off a Chinese saying, which wasn't really a saying as such, it was actually a curse. as some would have it, may we live in interesting times. May he live in interesting times. And the interesting times that we're speaking of is just looking at the 20th century then.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things that were negative. Countries got independence. There were upheavals. There were fights. But yet also in that century, some of the innovations that we've carried on to this particular day and age began then. And life-changing processes began in this world that one had never anticipated or even thought. The computer was not even foreseen to be what it is today and how it would change the communication of the world. So, in a sense, we do live in interesting times. But as far as democracy goes, the understanding of democracy from the Western concept is considered Western because they speak the most about it, and they have systems which over time have actually gotten to the process where they can be relied on to be precisely that. Come back to our continent and ask ourselves, if you actually look at that word, its meaning, its import, and its relevance to us, the question that comes to my mind is a simple one. If our politics was not based on parties like the Western model, and every candidate who wanted to vie for a parliamentary seat went directly to the people as an independent, what on earth would that mean? It sounds like it's really far-fetched, but in reality it isn't. Because when the national resistance movement of Tanzania, of Uganda to Tanzania, came into power, from 1996 to around the year 2001, candidature within Uganda was actually precisely that. People went and vied for seats as themselves, meaning you and your merit. NRM was just a movement then. But if you look at even Uganda now and the process that they're going through, they still have a very high proportion of what you may refer to as independent candidates, people who don't have any party affiliation. So is it that this party affiliation, is it what bedevils us? Is it what brings about the conflicts that we have in this country? Is it what brings conflict on this continent? Or would it be better if individuals simply went and vied for any constituency seat as themselves and not necessarily as representing a particular ideal or particular party?
Interesting. Why do you see political parties then bring the conflict? How do you connect the two?
A lot of the times, political parties on our continent are also tribal-based. You'll find at the heart of that particular political party, there is a certain community leaning, a geographical area, a commonality in language. You will find that commonality. If you speak of Kenya, I don't need to explain. It's actually quite clear. It's something we see over and over. The only time we didn't see it for the longest time was when we had one party, KANU.
Yep.
You didn't see it because everybody had to join KANU. The other parties that we've had, yes, there's a smattering of or a spotted representation of people from all over the country in some parties, but there is always a dominance of a particular community with a certain linguistic proliferation.
In a party?
Yes.
So look at that decade. Let's not even go to the 70s. Look at the 80s and the decade of a proper de jure one-party rule. Everybody who was going to the election. How many elections did we have in that decade? Was it 2?
In the 1980s?
Was it 82 or 83 when there was it 81? So if you look at the elections and how they were conducted at that time, people would basically just go and contest an election. There's KANU and Jogo there, and then you have your own symbol. It's Star Jew, Torch Jew, Panga Jew,
Matchbox,
Kiberiti Jew. You know, it has to go with both. And then Pigia City Muga. Are you saying that helped to dissipate the tribal tension?
In many ways, it did. It actually did. But you see, again, there was a party.
Yeah.
And so if you belong to
all
that
of you belonged to that party.
Yes. So the likelihood of you winning was not just you belonging to the party, but how you are affiliated to a honcho who was high up in that party hierarchy.
Okay.
But it was party.
So there's still some allegiance somewhere that you owed to.
You did. And in fact, in the absence of that allegiance, it was next to impossible for you. Because remember, the systems that we had then, we still have. You have local assemblies of the party. We have the ward representatives. There was a district representative. And the people who chaired these parties in those days were powerful individuals. They could either make or break you. But there was a party behind it.
Right.
And when multipartyism came in, we followed the same trend. It's just that now we had many parties.
just break up KANU into K, A, N, U. And,
yes,
and,
just book K
all
went
other
one side, A
alphabets.
went one side, U went one side, and then N.
But but did it solve the problem, or was it seen to have solved the problem? Does it bring about a sense of belonging, or does it just covers up the issue? It doesn't solve it. It just means that you can, even though there are these differences, it just means that you can all be part of one big group together, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the issues that made you form that group in the first place have been solved.
It actually solves some problems, but if we're talking about politics, when you solve a problem, you usually tend to create another one. Okay? If you look at the formation, for instance, of the one body that had stood out as being in opposition to KANU, it was called Ford. It had every Kenyan in it. Every. So long as people felt they wanted, but you saw that disintegrating. And unfortunately, the disintegration became regional. And in our context, it became tribal. See, this is now. So an opportunity, a beautiful opportunity, but at that point, I would argue we lost that opportunity again, that particular one.
If you look back, if you removed political parties, so let's just try and create this scenario, remove political parties that everybody who's vying for an election is vying as independent. So it is Nduoko, Eric Latif, and C.T. Muga who are turning up for an election, and we are asking the electorate to vote for us based on who we are. There's still going to be some allegiance somewhere to a local opinion leader, to somebody.
There always is, because even within communities, there already are leaders. And it is one thing for you to be a leader within the community. There will be reasons, but it is another if you vied for that particular position, whether people will feel that they will galvanize behind you and vote for you.
Okay.
They may like you because you are the sort of person who can be guaranteed, or they can take it for granted, you will support when there is a famine. Doesn't mean they will vote for you. Then there are people who may be very, very popular because they consider the person to be someone who is humorous. Doesn't mean they're going to vote for you. But when there is no party, this is the likeliest, not the best, the likeliest opportunity for the individual to actually present themselves without too many things being tied to this. Because the moment you have party politics and it's regional, it is almost guaranteed that if you're not aligned to that political party, you will not get that seat. So your individual merits out of the window completely. The voters may even see it. They may even know it. They may even talk about it. But they will not vote for you.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You're in the wrong party.
It will not
You're
matter.
using the wrong vehicle.
Yes.
Can we get away from that kind of party affiliation?
Yes.
Because I think that unfortunately we lose out on some pure gems that could actually come in to positions of leadership by virtue of the fact that they are not affiliated or associated with a particular party. So that whatever they will be able to offer the country gets swallowed up in this narrative that, well, if you don't belong to the party, then the likelihood of us selecting you then is very low. Whereas there could be something that you could offer, but because you don't have a platform upon which then to drive this vehicle, you don't get chosen. You don't get selected. In fact, it's deliberate that you don't get selected because you're not part of this party. Which, if you look at it truly, whatever the party is actually offering you could be nothing.
Yes, Eric, it is.
A piece of paper that you throw in the dustbin. Because then you want to ask yourself, what then has this party delivered for the duration of time it's been in existence?
It's not the party.
To the country.
It's actually the person at the top of the party. It's the owner of the party.
So the owner of the party,
Jubilee
you ask yourself, what then have
was
they
all
delivered?
about Uhuru and Ruto. Now Jubilee is disintegrating. You go and ask Moses Kuria whether he's a member of Jubilee, he'll tell you yes. But his thinking and the way he behaves in Jubilee is not the same way that, for example, somebody else in the same county, let's say Gathoni wa Mushomba, who is also a Jubilee woman rep for Kiambu County. So they're not the same. They're in the same political party. So it's all about the
even in the same county.
So I dare actually even say that in this country, and we've said this very many times before, we don't have political parties. We don't have. We have personalities creating special purpose vehicles for an election, and then they get into positions of power and they misuse whatever vehicle that they had, and they start creating the next one for the next election. So with that, I agree with you. We can just do away with the whole, let's just save the people the agony, remove the whole idea of a party, and then say, people go. But we'll still be left with the same problem that we have. just like we've said, people are not voting for Jubilee because of Jubilee and what it represents. People are voting for Jubilee because Uhuru, because Ruto, because Kiraito Morongi, because the others. People are not voting for NASA or ODM because of what ODM represents. If Raila walked out of ODM today, that party is dead. Kalonzo Musyoka walks out of Wiper, we start questioning. So what was that party called? The one that Kalonzo used to have? Wiper. That's the time we'll be remembering that.
Was it ODM Kenya?
ODM Kenya transformed into Wiper, right? So it's about Kalonzo. That's why it has the following. So even if we removed the name Jubilee, people will still be looking at how are you affiliated to Uhuru, to Ruto.
But you see what is interesting, Eric, even as you say this, it is our representation of a democratic political process. Yes, it goes tribal. And again, the Western concept of tribe is that it can't be anything other than negative. Okay? And yet, not necessarily. If you look at any, and I mean literally any, this election in the U.S. points this way. Why do people keep pointing out to Hispanic votes? Why do they keep pointing to black votes? They'll even integrate it to Italian votes. No, yes. White generally, then they'll go
that Biden delivered the white
vote.
Right.
And even within the white
rural constituency.
Yes.
And the urban.
Yes.
And even in the white vote, the New York white vote is different from the Georgia white vote, for example.
They'll categorize it for you.
For sure.
Given the origins of where these white people came from. So the concept of tribe is universal. Okay? It's just that when it is propagated by our cousins from the West, it is always presented as though it is something absolutely negative and backward, and yet it isn't. Right now, ask yourself a simple question. This democracy that we speak of, and which, for instance, has been really, really propagated by our former colonizers, it is something they themselves have failed to actually practice in their own backyard. You have the Welsh still seeking some sort of independence. You have the Scots, they have a little more independence. Then you have the Irish. It isn't as though these people are far off. They're just literally next door. It may be a United Kingdom, but that is how they've decided to manifest their democracy. Others within those boundaries don't agree. And they are agitating, and they have been agitating, and they still agitate. Now, with COVID, what has become apparent, each of these units, each of these parts of the United Kingdom have clearly indicated that they're going to handle COVID differently. And the division even began at the time of the Brexit. Not all these units agreed that this is the way they should go. They wanted to go differently. Again, this is a manifestation of democracy. But I'm referring to our democracy as Africans.
So our democracy then, CT, our issue, our challenge is not party. So even if you say, let's have all candidates as independent candidates, we may not really address the issue that you raised.
Yes.
That we have these groups that call themselves party, but basically what they are is that they're just groupings, tribal groupings that make us all focus on the tribal area. And then within that tribal grouping is how close you are to the head of this party, then that also guarantees that you get elected.
Eric, I am saying,
if that is the issue, if we remove that party, then
our composition actually is represented right. If you look at the continent, it's mirrored right throughout the continent.
Yep.
And I'm arguing that it has been presented as a negative thing because it is assumed people will have issues because of tribal issues, tribal matters, so to speak. And I'm saying, but that is our democracy. We may not like it, but that is how we manifest our political position.
So are you saying that there cannot be a one-size-fits-all democracy?
I'm saying
that you can take democracy and then you can then tweak it a little bit and fit it or give it an added or a new definition as to how it would work for a particular boundary with its own sovereignty that you're working within. And to say that this democracy, the foundations of it, sure, we can accept that, whereby everybody, it's power for the people, and the people are the ones who essentially decide. However, there's certain things we can shift around a little bit then to make it work for you.
Look,
if that's it, then maybe we should call it something else. It shouldn't be democracy, and it shouldn't be.
Why don't we look at this party system in the West, as we call it? All right. In the UK and in the US, you only hear of two parties at any given time. Just two: Labour, Conservative, Republican, Democrats. Other places like Germany, you will hear of other parties, but the smaller parties, my favorite one of the smaller parties, the Green Party, you also hear them participating. If you go to Italy, you'll find a nice mishmash. You know why? Some of these parties are needed for you to form coalitions. You go to Israel, it's even more interesting. The other country which has this interest until Modi became the prime minister was India. They also had this nice mishmash of many parties, meaning the participation enabled a clear representation of the diversity of people that are there. But the moment you have two dominant parties, the question that I'm not asking is really how democratic is this really?
Is this when you have only two? Let's take a break. 20 minutes to 10. Let's see what's happening on the roads. Is the traffic starting to ease off this Thursday morning? It's coming up to 20 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let's see what's happening there. And then we continue the conversation. The debate about democracy and the shape of the democracy in the continent of Africa is what we're having this morning. 0719-012-600. Join the conversation. Spice FM KE on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Okay,
Traffic.
so Thika Road, where the traffic has gotten a little bit better, we now have COVID-19 guidelines operation taking place by the Kenya Police Service. So if you're not wearing a mask or if you've boarded an overloaded vehicle, you will bear the brunt of the Kenya Police Service this morning. So it's causing some traffic in certain spots on Thika Road, so you must be very careful if you're headed in that direction. That's what lies ahead. Traffic, however, most part is gone. Mombasa Road will continue to feel the effects of traffic throughout the day. We'll see that it phased off a little bit, but then it's picked up again right around the SGR through to Cabanas. It's moving very slowly, guys, and we expect this throughout the day and yes, through the coming weeks. Jogo Road is looking a little bit better now, getting in and out of the city center. Uhuru Highway, however, still clogged up here and there. Expect a longer trip if you're headed in that direction. Yes? We'll see what it looks like through the day. You can talk to us by SFMKE on Twitter or text on 40127.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
All right, so 20 minutes to 10. Should African countries just do away with the big political party issue and focus on creating their own democracy?
Or their own system of government. Who says it has to be called democracy? And that's what I'm saying. If you take democracy and then you remove some of the elements of what it was supposed to be, it's not democracy anymore. So call it something else.
No, we don't call it democracy.
The people who came up with the word had certain things or certain elements that made it a democracy. Right? They're the ones who coined it. They're the ones who said this is what it is.
Government by
the people, right?
It and you see that all those things.
But
the
now
only thing you're changing here is you're saying that it is not going to be represented in this way. It's still about the issue of people choosing their leaders. It's still about the issue of those leaders then getting into positions of authority and representing the people. And the people still having say, and these people who are in positions of authority being accountable to their leaders. It's still about all these other
but there's an element that you remove from it.
And the majority of the people having a bigger say.
But there's an element you remove from it so that it doesn't remain wholly so. It's just like if you have a glass of water and then you put a dash of wine, it is no longer completely water. It is something else. So I'm not saying that it can't be called democracy. I'm saying that if you're going to remove an element of it, then add something to it to call it, because you can't say that we've removed certain tenets that make something inherently a democracy. We've removed it, and then now we want to still call it a democracy. No.
And this inherent thing that you've removed is what exactly?
It's not always saying that if you want to remove political parties because they don't serve the purpose, right? They don't serve the purpose because political parties in a democratic state or have a purpose. It's supposed to be bodies that serve particular ideals which individuals can then join to then run the course of a particular administration of governance.
Which came before the other, democracy or political parties?
Which did?
I'm asking you.
Tell me.
I think democracy came before political parties.
Exactly. So when it was the system itself
that came... The party is a tool.
It's a tool through which democracy will be established.
Yeah. So you can create another tool.
That's what I'm saying.
For the same democracy. So it's still going to be democracy. It's
Yeah,
just that what we're
but
saying is we have removed the party.
Extend this discussion. We have countries where two parties dominate the political landscape. So, will it be a democracy if there's only one dominant party? The West will call it a dictatorship, and I'm saying not necessarily. The fact that there's only one party doesn't mean, one is just one away from two.
Yeah?
It's not really far away from two.
Is that so?
It is so. So, if, for instance, we held a referendum in this country to determine whether we should have 1,000 parties or just have one party, and the yes won it and said we should have one party, will we be a democracy?
Were we not a democracy when you had a one-party rule?
That is what we were told we were not. We were told we were under a dictatorship. And there are those who are of the opinion we just had a strong leader.
No, we had a party. We had people who were participating in choosing leadership throughout the system.
Process. And we had the people who were also disagreeing with those who were in that one-party system.
Yeah.
Yes. And were paying a very steep price for disagreements. But nonetheless, they were disagreeing.
And they were saying that then the others, these Western people were saying that we are not a democracy.
They were saying,
we were a single-party democracy.
Yes.
That's what we were.
The sort of scholarships that people who were being given at that time, remember, first of all, they were given a name. They were called dissidents. And once you're a dissident, it wasn't the sort of scholarship that you probably had applied for. And they take you to an institution where it wasn't the sort of learning you had anticipated.
We're in a democracy and we still have people leaving the country and being given scholarships. Johnson Odero is calling in from Kahawa West, and let's hear from him. Good morning, Johnson.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good. Fine, thank you.
I have a question and a comment at the same time. But my question is, in a discussion, does it mean that political parties are something which destroys our democracy? Does it mean that?
That's a good question. So your comment? Maybe you're answering the same question.
My point is, when we talk of democracy, we must have an option. And the option has to be two going up. You can't have one political party governing maybe a whole nation and then you claim that to be a democracy, because democracy has to have at least two options whereby you choose either one. And there are two maybe different opinions driven by those two, maybe if they are major political parties or very many political parties. So you can't have one.
So let me ask you, when you talk about a democracy within a political party, what are we talking about? So does Jubilee have democracy? In that, to choose your leaders within the party, you are selecting from two and above of members of the same party, but then you decide that this is the person who's going to be our chairman, this is the person who's going to be our local secretary general, organizing secretary. Is that not so? Or our candidate for an election?
Now, in a political party, democracy exists whereby you have to make a choice. If it has been presented, like say Jubilee, have two people who aspire to be president, okay?
Yep.
Then they make a choice. At the same time, there can be no any other person interested in wanting presidential seat in the Jubilee. So one person is only one person who has stood out. So it takes that universal vote. But I was contrasting this to like a country like Kenya, whereby
Johnson, something is happening to your line. Something is happening to Johnson's line. Let's just drop it for a moment. Boniface in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning, lady and gentlemen. How are you?
Good
We're
morning.
fine, thank you.
I'm Boniface from Mombasa. And I like your show. I want maybe to give a contribution about the topic of the day. Sincerely speaking, democracy in Kenya specifically, I don't think we have democracy. Actually, the political parties that we are talking about, I'm afraid to say, but the truth is that those are just tribal parties. For example, you cannot go and sell maybe Jubilee in an area where my friend Sitimuga comes from, or where I come from. However good or however composed you might look like, but once you mention a specific party, then you will be out of the picture.
Okay.
So, in short, if you talk of Wiper, a typical Kenyan will think of a Kamba. If you talk of an ODM, a typical Kenyan will think of a Luo. If you talk of, and actually, these are just a way of getting into power.
They're just vehicles.
Because they're just vehicles, but there's no. Because
so Boniface,
Yeah.
should we just get rid of political parties and just say so Kenya is a democracy which is not via political party but by people electing their leaders directly as independent candidates?
Exactly. Let me tell you one thing. During elections in Kenya, we have very reasonable individuals. But once the bigger politician, the bigger brother tells you that, we want so and so, tukienda huko mbele, that is the language. Tukienda huko mbele, we want somebody whom we can fight with. You look at that.
Yes.
We need, how do they call it, 6-piece.
It's a 6-piece.
So, in short, these people just want their own people.
Sawa. Thank you very much.
And then
Boniface.
democracy gets out of the picture.
Asante sana Boniface. Ed Gitonga in Nyeri, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, here's the thing, huh? There's a difference between baking bread for a display and baking bread to eat.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. For example, in Kenya, the politicians, they usually form parties in their language for better leadership. So as we move in one path. But in reality, it's for their own interest, and it's for it's like this, which party, which coalition is going to give me the direction, which party is going to give me the seat, okay?
Yeah.
But the thing is, for example, when we look at how South Africa does when we talk about ANC, right? It works in a way, right? But still, because it's one party system in a way, because it's the main party over there, you find that there are wrangles in there. You find Maluma in parliament and everything. No one goes on, right? I think, personally, we shouldn't do away with political parties. I don't think so. But I think we should do away with the thinking that we have behind political parties. That it is because there is a political party, that is why we are going to achieve this, or we are going to achieve that. Because I believe, for example, in Machakos, you can find some counties are doing much more, and Machakos is leading. Why? Because people elected differently, because they took Mutua or another guy, like for example, Derito for Laikipia. They took him out of what he has, not the party.
Not the party.
By with. Exactly. So I think having political party is a good thing, because you're spoiled for choice. But then there's a con for it, and the con is you're spoiled for the wrong choice.
Okay. Thank you, Ed. Let's cross over into Mombasa. Solomon, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Solomon.
Good morning.
My view on political parties is, you see, a political parties is like a wedding gown on a wedding day during the general election. You just use it for one day, then after that day, you are after your own interests.
Yeah.
And that's why you find each and every election people defect from one party to another, as long as the interest fits them. If you look in our system, the people who are divided from Jubilee, because they are following, for example, Ruto, because he seems to be a very potential player in the coming election. Because right now, it seems like Uhuru is more like a useless person towards the 22 election as compared. ODM are still intact because they believe Raila will still vie for that, but for the presidential seat. So you find each and every election there people will defect, but it's only for their security purposes and their interests. Because you see, if I'm in Jubilee, I'm in Kiambu, there's a guarantee 60% of these people will vote for me. The other 40% is basic on maybe how I relate with my people. Yes.
Okay, yeah, those are good points, and thank you very much, Solomon, for that. And just thinking, listening to this, I'm actually getting more and more convinced that we need just to get rid of political parties altogether and just say go to an election, because the political party is what is then binding us to this. there is no point of somebody coming with that con language and say that I have a political party and I'd like you to give me people with whom I'm going to work to kienda huko mbele. Unaenda wapi mbele? I'm electing you to be president. Go and become president alone.
The way in
I'm
which
electing other people to be members of the National Assembly so that they can check the excesses of you as a president. So I don't want them to fanya kazi pamoja na wewe. No, I want them to do their work.
There you go. And I think, unfortunately, the way political parties are being used right now in the present state is that they cover for a multiple of wrongs or a multiple of inadequacies by those who are putting themselves up for, public office. That you can hide under the cover of the political party. And because we're all going in this general direction, the mob and the people in the middle who may not have what you're actually looking for kind of just go along with the flow. But if you have people essentially standing on their own, people who are able to present a case to you that you should be able to accept or denounce, then you'll be able to make a... Because right now I think that people are hiding under the cover because it's not being used in the manner in which it was initially intended for.
In fact, even in these very democratic countries, our political party is really democratic by their nature.
Internally and all.
Oh, because it's the leader of the party who decides who can join, who cannot join.
The leaders are the ones who decide. If political parties are not democratic, how then do they actually take that position of leading democratic processes?
Or that they are now the earthly establishment of democracy.
Something you don't practice from among your ranks. And you then say that you are in a position to actually put it into practice when you are now in a position of power over a larger number of people. How exactly does that work?
I think the other political parties which have now those tenets of democracy, only thing that happens is that there's a cabal that gets in and starts abusing their power. But the party itself has structures that are supposed to entrench that democracy, to ensure that there is participatory decision-making, to ensure that the membership of the party is being consulted when major decisions are being taken. There is that structure. That structure does exist. And then you'll find now the problem is a few people at the top who have been in this party for so long, they've risen through the ranks, they've understood the system, so they rise to the top and they become like they've got veto power. Whatever decision, we're going to go through the process, but if what the people are saying is contrary to what I'm thinking, I can overturn that decision. Mine is what's going to carry the day. Select parties.
If you actually look at a political system that favor a parliamentary system of government, you will actually see the power of political parties in operation. Okay? There are countries where the political establishment, you will find there's one extremely dominant. Now, when the political party is dominant, then one could even argue that it has dictatorial powers. So at what point is it really democratic?
At some point.
At some point, albeit for 1 second, but it happens.
So at some point in the future,
there'll be a flash of democracy, and then we'll move on. I vote yes.
You see,
get rid of political parties.
So in essence, we're saying with democracy, there's no absolutism as such. Really.
No.
So
for as long as you're making a decision, then there's somebody who's gonna be at a position of influence somewhere who may influence even the decision that you're making. Even when we say that we have removed political parties, but we are all voting for so-and-so, there'll be that person who now becomes the local kingmaker.
They always will be.
And that local kingmaker influences the people and what they... If the local kingmaker does not like City Muga, it doesn't really matter.
You're going nowhere.
You're going nowhere. It's not a party. It is the person.
And it's, you see, when you talk about personalities, it is the influence that they wield.
Yep.
And that influence is power that has been given to them by people. They have done things, and over time they've accumulated serious social capital. In some cases, serious cultural capital. In some cases, serious economic capital.
Yeah.
But you see, like now, look at the system where we talk about with the Democrats and the Republicans, for example. Would you see something like that rearing its head? That is it. The leader of the party doesn't even come into the conversation.
You don't even know them.
You don't even know who they are. Because everybody understands that what this thing is supposed to be doing.
And you get the impression they themselves are not really politicians. You don't see them
that's
going
why
for
you can
elected
have,
posts.
That's why you can have a quote-unquote nobody.
Which one?
The one who keeps losing the Democratic primaries.
You're talking about Bernie?
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders.
He knows the leader of the party. Ask him. Just go and ask him.
But Bernie Sanders had a good showing at the very beginning. Excellent.
You man. Anyway, we're coming to the end of the show. Tomorrow is Friday. Join us again for more conversations. But as we do that, today we have 2 proverbs.
Eric, we do have two proverbs. The reason why the tortoise will carry...
Ijakba.
The reason why the Ijakba will carry the weight of its house forever is fear. Okay. 1A. 1B. A mind already exposed to knowledge is not difficult to educate. So as we think of democracy, educate your mind a little bit more about the wherefores of this particular terminology and how it fits into our Kenyan context.
And be a warrior. Stop carrying your house.
Oh, wow. Good one.
Thank you, Eric.
All right. Uninterrupted music from now until 3 o'clock, and then Spice Drive up to 7, and then the adults in the room come in from 7 to 10. We will see you tomorrow, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. CT Muga, Nduoko.
Actually, 6 a.m.
What did I say?
7.
I said 7.
Mm-hmm.
It is Thursday, Eric.
Tomorrow we start at 6.
And tomorrow is Friday.
Usually.
And tomorrow
on
is
Fridays.
Friday. Yes.
There is daylight saving time.
Not in Kenya. Sorry.
All right, so tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now 10 o'clock. Have a good day.